In one small and remote village called Dover lies a very important secret mother to her son's head. A man asks if he got hurt while hunting monsters. The guy explains that he almost died during the battle. Poor parents who need power for the farm and their heroes who risk their lives hunting monsters. Even children worry about their parents who went out to fight these monsters. The villagers claimed that they trusted only one remedy, the potion prepared against monsters by the Apothecary of Dover. The woman claimed that drinking this potion would give them unprecedented strength. The man insisted that they should only go to the Dover Apothecary, as his was truly of much better quality. The gentleman was interested in what the secret recipe for their potions was. Sherry explains that these potions are very difficult to create, but for the sake of money, or rather their health, she is ready to do anything. The woman claimed that people's health is the greatest happiness for a pharmacist, and then asked if this was true. The young gentleman smiled and claimed that she was stammering and nervous, and asked if he was right. And then he says that he heard that there is a secret ingredient that grows only in these places. The pharmacist says that this is so, and she will just show him, and then points to the red flower and says that this is the secret ingredient of mandrake. The man asks in surprise if such a small flower is capable of such a thing, and then touches it. The lady smiled and then said that it couldn't be pulled out, but it was too late, as the man had torn the potion out by the roots. Mandrake. If you pull it out, he attacks the intruder with his ultrasound, and at that time, the gentleman screamed. At this time, the main character thought that she didn't know whether it was because of Mandrake's ultrasonic attack, but it suddenly dawned on her that this place was not their real world. And a game called Save the And. The pharmacist who gave the interview for the local newspaper was Shari Azriel, Dover Village Pharmacist, NPC. And frankly, in this game, she was an NPC. Game Save the Earth has created the best rendering system of any game. Because players can attack monsters with characters trained by AI, they also made the standard quests more challenging by adding evasion to the monsters. This is a story-driven game where the player must save a world on the brink of destruction. Although games where the user is not the protagonist are not gaining popularity, this game was made popular by its full VR immersion. By wearing VR equipment, users could see and feel the game world as if it were real. They could easily become heroes, wandering the world in search of adventure, and it would all be just like in the real world. People were leaving only positive feedback, but an error occurred in the game's north section, which stated that all user sessions would soon be terminated. Although this is a beta version of the game, there were no end to the bugs and errors in the north. All rewards were lost due to the error. The guy realizes that because the enemies are constantly learning, the artificial intelligence was unable to find the ideal attack option. This really intrigued avid gamers, but none of them were able to reach the final because it was incredibly difficult. That's why this game is gaining popularity among the public, and many considered it a cursed game because errors often appeared in the new version. The server returned a message that an error occurred in the new version. Due to an urgent system check, players' access to the beta version will be limited. The man doesn't understand how an error can occur just 12 hours after the new version has been implemented. At this point, the young lady very angrily says that she just finished work, and she wonders if they are too demanding. The girl understands that, as an employee of this game, she is responsible for processing bug reports and resolving player complaints. She joined the game as an NPC and claimed that the sound was fine and that the night modification was complete. This girl understands that she checks for bugs in quests and has already fixed them many times, and therefore she is wondering if it is time for them to end. The main character reflects on the fact that this time she cannot even imagine it, because she understands that people like her have no opportunity to refuse the management and nothing can be done about it. However, the lady considers herself lucky to be working from home. She had hoped that the game she was working on would be officially made. Suddenly, the message warns that playing for a long time can cause mental and physical harm. The little girl realizes that she didn't even think that this game would change her life, and she turned on the game to correct the mistake. However, it turned out to be worse when she entered the Zenith continent. But now, let's return to reality in the village. Journalist Damien asks how much these potions cost. The main character looked and realized that the character's name was on the head, and she believed that this was the real world of the game. She understands that this is playtime, no matter how much she tries to ignore it. A man approaches a pharmacist and asks if she is feeling unwell. She explains that she just suddenly felt ill, and at that time she thought that she had been playing this game for 2 years. The girl screams and says that it is time for her to go, and therefore she asks for forgiveness, and then quickly leaves. The little girl can't believe that she has already spent 2 whole years there, which in the game is equal to 24 hours in real life. The lady remembers that she started playing at 11 on Friday night, and 24 hours have already passed, which means it is already Saturday night. The lady realizes she's been there all day already, but she knows this won't do, because she can't stay there any longer and wants to set up an exit. A system message states that due to an unknown error, exiting is currently impossible. The girl doesn't understand why this keeps happening and why these bugs don't end. She wonders how to get out of there. She assumes that if someone from the real world turns her off, then she might be able to get out. The little girl understands that she doesn't have any friends, as she lives alone, and so this option definitely won't work. Besides, the fact that she's online means she's working. The girl understands that even her colleagues will not notice her absence, and at this time, she began to wonder what will happen to her body, because she has not eaten for a whole day. The main character reflects on the fact that after she finally realized that she was in a game, she tried all possible ways to return back. In her first attempt, she went to look for an NPC consultant to whom she could report the bug. Because of her past, this damn game created a bug reporting system through NPCs instead of their UID. The baby understands that since she is the only such NPC in the village of Dover, she came to the lands of Count Haley for the sake of an NPC consultant. But suddenly, she saw a message that reports were accepted on weekdays, and it was impossible to contact consultants outside of working hours. The lady claims that the person is dying, but of course his rest is more important. The second attempt was to die from the monster's attacks, but a warning informed her that she had died and was unable to save the Earth from destruction, and then asked if she wanted to start over. A window will pop up where you can exit the game and return to reality due to the fact that the game is connected with the nervous system. You can feel pain there. The main character understands that she has no other choice, and therefore calls this game cursed. The notification informs her of the warning, and she is automatically teleported to the starting point in Dover Village. The girl understands that as soon as her health falls below 10%, she returns back to the village. The young lady thinks that for a game full of bugs, this works suspiciously smoothly, and therefore she should try a more foolproof option. Shari speculates that she must have been teleported because her health was depleting so slowly. But if she dies immediately, everything might work out. The girl stood on the edge of a cliff and thought that, although it was scary to fall from such a height, she believed that everything would be fine, because it was just a graphic. This time, she was stopped by a barrier installed behind the cliff, and the little girl screamed and said that this NPC couldn't even let her fall into eternal sleep. The main character reflects on the fact that, at this rate, it seems to her that the entire universe is against it, and this whole damn game does not want to release her. The little girl understands that she can't give up so easily, and she must try again. Sherry came to the lands of Count Haley every day and left angry messages, and one day, after spending 2 months in the game, the message asked if she was saying that she couldn't leave the game. The girl was glad that at least the consultant answered, and at that time, she thought that she would finally be able to get out of there. However, although she sees this nickname for the first time, since it is the production team's JM, they are responsible for a good reputation. The little girl understands that this is a bug that does not let a person out of the game, and she is sure that they will immediately help her. The message indicated that it seemed like she was very scared when she couldn't disconnect from the game. After reading this, the girl claims that she is stuck in the game and, moreover, she is not a player, and asks if they can't see that she is an NPC, and then claims that she is from the operational team and came here for work. The notification asks her to wait a minute because he'll ask about her. Hearing this, the little girl doesn't understand whether they're making her wait any longer. Shari, I wonder if the production team can't verify the information about her themselves. The message thanked her for waiting, and task force worker Sherry confirmed her identity. And then she reports that she entered the game as a pharmacist in the village of Dover NPC Balls Ariel. The main character wonders if they've found the cause of the bug. Meanwhile, she's thinking about how she needs to control herself, as nothing good will come from her complaints. The worker explains that it appears the error occurred when they closed access to the north for a full check, and asks if he can return to her after the northern service team responds. Shari screaming says that in no case, because she waited for their answer for 2 months. And besides, she has been there for more than 20 hours, and what will happen if she dies? The lady looked out the window and saw that something was being printed, and she didn't understand why it was so slow, because she didn't really have time. The notice states that, in this case, they sent one worker to her address to remove the equipment from her head, and then asks how she feels about it. The little girl screams and tells them to send it right now. The notification says they're sending a worker to her, so she should wait. Shari screamed and said that she would wait, and at that time she thought that she would finally leave there. But suddenly, a notification informs that it will start, unfortunately, with bad news. The conversation that followed completely shattered all her hopes for life. The screen said that their workers had looked at her house, which was listed at the address in the workers' records, but there was no one in the house. They searched every inch and checked her desk in the office just in case, but she was nowhere to be found, and then they wondered if it was possible that she had connected somewhere else. The girl claims that if she wasn't at home or even at the office, then where else could she be? And because she's been here for so long, she can't remember anything. The main character believes that she still cannot die from the fact that she is stuck in the game. And then, screaming, asks for at least help in filing a missing persons report. since she has no family who could do this. The notice says they are very sorry, but current Korean law only allows family members to report an adult missing. After reading this, the little girl understands that she cannot die like this and does not know what to do. The notification suggests not to worry, because those responsible for the North will soon find the cause of the error and will calculate its location using the company's closed-loop system. Sherry thinks that at least they can eat to help somehow, and then asks how long it will take. The screen says about 2 days in the real world. She screams and says that a person could die if they don't eat anything during that time. The notice claims that people don't die of hunger so easily, but she screams and asks if he's kidding. The worker suggests that she calm down for her own safety, and says that it was difficult to prepare this, but it will help her get out of the game. The employee reports that due to an emergency, she has gathered everyone from the production team to create an exclusive chat for Sherry. And now they can watch her in real time, without her having to approach an NPC and wait for a response. Sarah thinks that this is the one stuck in the game who can't switch off. Jin asks if she knew that they could die, and then says that he himself almost died from such cringe. Sarah asks if they understand how hard they're trying. The main character says she doesn't care. Just let them get her out of there quickly. Ari asks how he dared to express himself like that, and therefore suggests that he watch his language. Jinwoo reports that they said they would help her, but she can't even wait. Sherry claims that after she gets out, she will quit there and leave the worst review. Ari reports that through this exclusive chat, they will get her out within 2 days. Hearing this, the girl asks in surprise if they are serious. Jin says that he will tell it for her, and then claims that in fact everything is simple, because she just needs to complete the game in 48 hours. The man says that once she reaches the end, she will be automatically returned back, and asks if this is true. She must ensure that the Lord of Nightmares does not fall asleep. The protagonist realizes that she must face the protagonist with the worst character. The game's main character, Prince Ludwig of Castle, and his courtiers and priests join forces to lift the curse and protect the world. However, they were unable to prevent the nightmares from becoming reality. And since then, people have nicknamed him the Lord of Nightmares. The prince became cruel and arrogant and was subsequently sent to a village where the story of the game began. Users received a quest to prevent the Lord of Nightmares from falling asleep. They would use any means to keep the Nightmare Lord passing through the village of Dover from sleeping. And if they don't succeed, then a disaster will happen. And some said that in the game, characters don't die, so they brutally cut Castle into pieces. After a few turns, the prince began to attack the approaching users and finish them off. At the moment, the number of players killed by his hands has approached the number of those finished off by monsters. Unlike regular users, Castle does not die in the game and always returns to the village of Dover. The girl became curious about what would happen if more than 2 days passed. The notification reports sad events that have recently attracted the attention of users of this virtual game. In the news, a journalist reported that a girl of about 20 years old was found without signs of life as a result of prolonged starvation due to the game. Gaming addiction led to an accident about the downside of virtual reality. Hearing this, the main character screams and asks what else I could do to die because of gambling addiction. The girl screams and orders them to get her out of there quickly, because she can't just die like that, and therefore suggests deleting her character. Sarah apologizes and explains that it is impossible to delete a character while connected to the game. Sherry screams and claims that she is locked in a damn game, and if she wants to, she will have to go through it to the end. Jinnu claims that she completed the tutorial herself, and then asks why she is screaming now and if she can do it. The young lady asks in surprise when she managed to do this, and Ari explains that she can check past entries about the game in this list. It was written on the screen that she had destroyed 100 monsters, and after reading about this, the lady realized that her story was there. The knight screams and asks where the NPC is, because they brought a brutal criminal from the capital. The main character, watching them, thinks that they are very annoying because they come to her whenever they want. The girl realized they were only trying to get the potion for free because they were warriors. She wondered if they were being too brazen. Shari thinks that this won't work and let them scold her, but she must run away before she has a fit of anger. The main character thinks that it would be better if she gives this potion to the main poor character. However, this led her to go through a tutorial which she completed and must then wake up the criminal. The little girl reflects on how she didn't know it would turn out this way, and then asks if there is a way not to play. Sarah says that she is very sorry, but the Lord of Nightmares has noticed her, and trouble will happen very soon. And if she doesn't defeat him, the village of Dover will disappear from the face of the earth. Ari claims that she is an immortal NPC, and therefore will not die. But if the return point disappears, she will not be able to restore health, and will receive a heavy punishment. Sherry realizes she can't abandon the main character. After all, then the game can't be finished by deleting the main character. To prevent the disaster and complete the game, she must complete the quest, Terrible Disaster. Kessel's participation so the main character must be present. The main character doesn't understand how she can complete a game that even pro gamers can't handle. Jinnu suggests that Miss shouldn't worry, because unlike other users, she has them. The man says the record time it took to get to the boss's office is 8 hours, and that's a piece of cake. They'll help her get there faster. Ari claims that she plays the game herself and knows how to complete the quest, then reminds that she is an immortal NPC. The main character reflects on the fact that if it is impossible to fix the error in the system, then the only thing left to do is to complete the game in order to survive. But she is enraged that they are forcing her to do this, although they understand that in 2 days, she risks dying. The girl believes that she will get out of the game and will not get out of it, even if she has to sweat a lot these days. The screen said that this was part 1 of the quest, and that this was the land of Count Haley, where the Lord of Nightmares was sent into exile. And the content must prevent the prince from falling asleep, prevent a global disaster, and prevent the sinister aura from penetrating the county of Haley. Shari understands that if the Lord of Nightmares noticed her, then the disaster will begin in 3 days. Now the girl is in exile in Haley County and he can't sleep. And to do this, he needs to find a pharmacist who can make a potion. The screen says that if the Lord of Nightmares falls asleep, his nightmares will become reality and disaster will begin. It is necessary to prevent him from falling asleep until the first disaster expires. And the additional condition means that the Lord of Nightmares must remain alive, and the conditions for completing the quest to accompany the apothecary and the reward. The girl read an advert for a pharmacist to help with insomnia. The little girl thought that it was good that the content of the quest was no different from what she knew, because initially, she had to persuade other NPCs from Haley County to go with her. The main character believes that since she is a pharmacist, she thinks she can handle it alone. Ari says that she is a pharmacist, and she does not need to look for other pharmacists. And the settings in this village have already been changed, so she is the only NPC pharmacist. Sarah claims that this is why she can rest assured and immediately head to Haley County. Jinnu says that to make the quest easier, he will change the settings to not show the chat window. The main character thanked him, and at that time thought that he was of no use anyway, so it would be even better this way. The lady understands that since no one is grumbling now, she can go and complete the quest. Shari meets a man with a sign over his head that says he's Bill the butler. Kendrick. The man asks in surprise who she is, and the girl says that she heard that this place needed a pharmacist. The butler looked at her in surprise and did not understand why she looked so unkempt and thought that she looked like a tramp. Therefore, she would not be allowed into the estate. The servant turns to the butler and claims that it is surprising, but this woman really is a pharmacist. The man explains that there is only one pharmacy in the area, and then asks what they will do with it. Bill invited the lady to follow him. Meanwhile, she thought it was a relief, as she thought she might be sent back. And walking down the corridor, the girl realizes that it is still light outside, but too dark inside. Suddenly, the girl became interested in what these letters were, because she understood that this was the beginning of a scenario, but the 25th level was quite high. The main character assumes that there is some other quest in Haley County. She looked around the room carefully and didn't remember seeing such a video for users. The little girl looked closely at the extinguished chandelier and guessed that it looked like the name of the main quest. The butler screams and asks why she is standing there, and therefore suggests moving faster. Bill knocks on the door and tells the gentleman that he has translated the one he was looking for, and the young lady comes into the office. She greets the count and then says that her name is Sherry Azriel, heard that he was looking for a pharmacist, and that's why she came. The girl looked at this man, who did nothing but watch her. The main character doesn't understand why this man has such manners and why everyone in this game is so AI. However, she's sure he'll like her. The owner of the Haley lands, Count Adam Haley, will later be called the White Sword, because together with Castle Ludwig, he will prevent the end of the world. Shari understands that she needs to show he has the ability to extract the potion and leave, but she knows that if he doesn't like it, it will be difficult to leave the game. Count Adam asks if she is the apothecary Sherry Azriel. The little girl insists that everything is correct. The count says it's strange, and then asks if she's alone. The girl replies that she is, and that she came alone. And at this time, she doesn't understand what's going on, and she's interested in what else he knows about her. The main character recalls that the user had to persuade the NPC pharmacist and come together. The young lady knows that the AI in the game cannot know this, and therefore assumes that perhaps he just said it. Adam says that she looks more like a tramp or a witch, and if she tries to deceive him, it will be difficult for him to guarantee her safety. The main character, watching him, sees that it is written that he is experiencing doubt, and she was surprised that the character's emotional state window writes about him. In this game, you can learn about the character's emotions through their expressions, lines, and also through the status window. However, the level of sympathy is not expressed in numbers, so closeness with other characters could only be measured by their lines. One could guess, even without any measurements, that the level of trust is currently very low. The lady understands that he is definitely biased towards her. The butler, screaming, turns to the pharmacist and offers to take off her cape and show her face to the Count. At this time, the main character thought that she had decided just a second ago that she needed to make a good impression on him. And the butler comes up to her and then, screaming, asks why she is stamping her feet like that and with great force pulls her hood off. The little girl thought that this man was very rude, and that even though she looked unkempt, she couldn't take off her hood. The young lady realizes that without her hood, she looks too conspicuous. Her beautiful skin is like the snow-white porcelain of the Joseon dynasty. The girl knows that she has soft hair as if woven from silk, violet eyes reminiscent of two amethysts, and all this describes the appearance of Shari Azriel. The main character realizes that she spent so much effort to customize the character's appearance, and suggests that maybe he will fall in love with her, and they will have to be together until the end of the game, and this will be inconvenient. The lady understands that she needs to quickly change the topic of conversation, and then says that she has a potion that keeps her awake. Sherry asks if he was looking for him, and then says that if he doesn't trust her because of her appearance, then let him take only the potions and she will leave. The main character looked at the gentleman and thought that he most likely didn't have the skills, because he wasn't looking for her for that reason. The little girl understands that the pharmacist must initially remain in the Count's estate, and personally give the protagonist the potion to prevent the end of the world. The girl believes that during this time she can complete other quests and finish the game, and since there are many servants, they themselves are able to give him the potion. Sherry says that she is not particularly interested in a reward, but if this potion helps him, she will consider it an honor. The Count says he wrote that he needed a pharmacist who could solve his insomnia problem, and she brought potions for wakefulness. The main character reflects on the fact that this question is a trap for users. The tutorial describes how to destroy the Nightmare Lord. His awakening could lead to a real catastrophe. The girl remembers that under no circumstances should she allow the Lord of Nightmares to sleep until the day of the prophecy where he is right now comes. The main character understood that it meant simply having to obtain a sleeping product, since users who click skip are buying a sleeping potion out of ignorance. Warriors typically kill 100 monsters to prove their worth. The lady reports that a convoy of convicts passed through their village. Sherry thought that the pharmacist could not prove his abilities in the same way, and therefore it was worth pretending to be the good-natured person that Adam liked so much. The main character reports that she heard that this criminal should not sleep under any circumstances, and that as soon as he falls asleep, many people could get hurt. The girl explains that she does not have any special powers, but she wants to help others in some way. The Count says that someone threw a potion at the condemned man as he passed by, and it was her. The girl saw a message that Adam Haley had temporarily stopped doubting her. He said he would trust her with this matter and therefore invited her to follow him. Hearing this, the main character looked at him in surprise, and then said that she gave him the medicine, and now it was time for her to go. The gentleman looked at her, and the girl asserted that she would go where he said, and therefore there should be no obstacles. Adam says that her task for the next 3 days is to prevent the criminal in this tower from sleeping, and if everything works out, he will pay her 100,000 gold. The Count gives the keys to the dungeon and informs him that the prisoner is chained with magic chains and is therefore unlikely to escape. The man tells her to still be careful when entering the cell. The little girl assures that she will take this into account, and the master says that it is time for him to go and he will order the maid to prepare a room for her. At this time, the main character thought that everything went wrong, but she wanted one thing, but it turned out differently, and that means that behind this door is Castle. Sherry remembers that she has only seen him in other players' videos and feels a little nervous. The little girl understands that she needs to quickly complete the game and get out of it. When the girl entered the room, she saw a man who was chained, and looking at him, she realized that he was very handsome. Sherry reflects on the fact that, after a personal meeting, it is immediately clear that this is a completely different level of beauty. The baby understands that he looks calm, but thinks it's better to be careful. The girl greets the gentleman and says that her name is Sherry Azriel and she is a pharmacist. And then she asks for forgiveness and explains that his head was tilted in an awkward position and she won't be able to give him the medicine. However, the man remains silent, and the lady says that nothing can be done, and that she will have to move it a little. Castle raised his head and ordered her to take her hands off if she didn't want to die. Hearing this, the lady thought that he had definitely harmed himself so as not to save, and he also didn't like being touched. And she completely forgot about it, and besides, he is chained in magic chains and probably has no strength. Sherry assumes that one blow probably lowered her points, and she will continue to act like this, because she cannot die because of the castle. The young lady announced that she would be wearing gloves from now on. And at that moment, I thought about the fact that the gloves were a sensory blocking artifact that eliminated the user's sense of touch. Above the guy's head, it was written that the Lord of Nightmares is currently unable to move due to a condition violation. The girl suggests that maybe he lost too much strength while threatening her, and he is almost falling asleep, and therefore it is necessary to quickly give him the potion before he really falls asleep. Sherry says that by the Count's order he must drink it, but now he is not able to drink it on his own. The lady says that if he doesn't mind, she will help him. The main character reflects on the fact that no windows seem to pop up, that he doesn't trust her, and that there is no ominous aura. The girl thinks that he agrees, and therefore she needs to come up with a way to give him the potion, while touching him as little as possible. The lady recalls that she had this pistol with a tranquilizer for monsters, which is used when hunting animals or monsters. Before use, you need to install an anesthetic needle. Shari smiled and thought that she was a real genius, and said that, as he saw it, this was a magical device for administering medicine. The girl opens his mouth and assures him that it is not at all dangerous, but at that moment she realizes that he looks strange, and then opens his mouth and injects the medicine. However, the man started coughing, and the girl then covered her mouth with her hand and screamed, telling him not to spit it out. The baby understands that he only needs to be patient for a few seconds, and after a few minutes, she realized that she had already managed to give him a drink. After all, she put on gloves and doesn't think that he will object because of some 5 seconds. And therefore, she will use this method from now on. Sherry informs him that she will come to him again when it is time to take the potion, and therefore suggests that they rest. Standing near the door, the girl saw a system alert. It said that the Nightmare Lord had a slight urge to kill her. The lady understands that she only gave him the potion, and he already wants to finish her off, and she began to wonder if sympathy indicators are important now, and the potion only lasts for 1 hour. There are also additional quests in Haley County. Cassell may develop an immunity to the potion's effects, causing its duration to shorten, eventually causing the cure to stop working altogether. The problem is that the probability of immunity arising appears at random. The main character reflects on the fact that luck will suddenly turn away from her, and the potion will no longer work on Castle. She believes that one cannot be 100% sure that this method can prevent a disaster. Sherry thinks that she can't trust only the main quest, and that she needs to complete the rest. The additional quest stated that she had to find and destroy the Dark Eater centipede. The monster that appeared in Haley County will receive a dark essence, and it is necessary to subdue the ancient sword hidden in the county and gain Adam's trust. The sword lost its light. It remained in this place for a long time and no one could pull it out. Even if it were pulled out now, it would be nothing more than useless iron, since the sword's life has ended. The rusty sword that had been in the tower where Cassell was imprisoned for a long time is the very sword with which the ancestor of the Haley family in the past sealed the centipede Dark Eater. Even after his death, the sword continued to hold the seal, but with the arrival of the Conqueror of Nightmares in the tower, the power of the seal began to weaken, and the sword became unusable. So the thoughts of the centipede demon began to leak out. A Dark Eater centipede is parasitizing people in Haley County in an attempt to remove the seal. Such monsters can only be defeated with weapons possessing the properties of light, and to destroy the main monster, a weapon with divine power is required. In each game, the characters possessed by the main monster are different. If it is destroyed, you can obtain the darkest essence. If the sword is infused with dark essence and strengthened, it will become Adam's weapon, necessary for unlocking his special powers during the end of the world. To revive the sword, a large amount of dark essence is required, which is not easy to obtain. It's beyond the capabilities of ordinary users, but she has other GMs, so it should work. The girl understands that she will definitely cope if she wants to survive. The main character thought that while she was thinking there, time did not stand still, and she needed to quickly find additional quests. The girl saw a chat window in which Ari wrote that Miss Sherry finally looked at them. Jin asks if she died at the hands of the main character. Sarah writes that she's doing well, as she managed to gain Castle's recognition. But the main character interrupts her and says that the man on whom the Dark Eater was parasitizing is interested in where this centipede is. Ari asks if she is going to take the additional quest, because he thinks that she took it very seriously. Sherry wonders because of whom she has to endure all this, and therefore suggests answering quickly. Ari writes that she sees one maid inside who will soon bring food to her room. The young lady asks in surprise whether she will then have to run quickly to catch her. She also wonders if there is somewhere closer. At this time, the maid opens the door and screams, calling her a dirty creature, and quickly orders her to eat this food. The maid tells you to leave quickly, and then claims that there is some tramp who does nothing but prepare a potion. The girl asks for forgiveness and explains that she worked so hard on the medicine, and the maid screams and asks why she is lying down and not working. At this time, the main character thought that she had run so fast, and it was very good that she was not late. The maid gives her some hard bread and says that the count ordered that she be fed the food that is just right for her. Shari looked at this food and realized that it was spoiled bread, and then asked if this could be eaten. Hearing this, the maid jumps up and asks why she isn't eating, and wonders if she's taking her words seriously. At this time, the little girl thought that she knew that, because of the centipede, people become cruel, but she thought that this was too much. Above the maid's head, it was written that she was a centipede, an arsonist of darkness, and the woman, screaming, said that if she didn't eat, she would feed her herself. The notice said that the potion had sunlight in it, and she used it and destroyed the Dark Eater centipede, and as a reward, she received 1 piece of dark essence. The main character thought that a potion with the property of light could be used instead of a weapon of light, and thinks that it's good that it worked. The girl says that since the centipede is gone, she thinks she'll figure it out herself when she wakes up. Then she realizes she needs to go give him some medicine. Sherry reflects on how her life has become routine, and she screams and says it's time to take her medication. The girl went to the castle before the potion's effect expired and gave him the medicine and destroyed the centipedes in the Count's estate. The main character also collected dark essences and imbued the sword with them and the old ones. This could only be done once a day. The sword, now lightless, resonates with an ominous aura. She understands she'll have to do this for 3 more days. The girl saw a notification that the Lord of Nightmares was angry with her, and every time she gave Castle a potion, he felt angry. Sherry is thinking that she doesn't intend to be friends with him, and therefore, it's time to get used to it. The little girl believes that if you look into the future, you can't do nothing, and she became interested in how to win him over. Shari asks if he likes it when she gives him the potion herself, and maybe she'll give him the potion to strengthen his health so he can take the medicine himself. The lady assures him there's nothing to worry about and that it's for his own good. After these words, she realizes she's somehow managed to calm his anger. The girl knows that she was able to collect the dark essence, and it didn't take her that much time to do so. A few hours later, the main character announces that it is time to take her medication. The main character thought about the fact that she gave him a health potion and believes that now he will be able to drink it himself. Suddenly, the girl felt that someone grabbed her by the cloak, and the man asked where she had gone. Castle asks who she is and orders her to answer quickly, then turns the girl over onto the floor and sits on top. Sherry asks him to wait, and what's going on? He tells her to answer him quickly before he breaks her neck. The lady explains that she is a pharmacist, and at that time, she thought that he was a damn psycho, and did not understand what was wrong with him. The girl believes that she can plunge into eternal sleep, and this will mean allowing objections at the starting point. She doesn't know what to do, because she understands that she can't handle him with force, and that she could die in no time. And so she thinks that she should inject him with a tranquilizer, because that's the only way left. The little girl understands that the problem is that it is difficult to find a place where she can inject the needle without him noticing. The young lady thinks that this is a bit cruel towards the main character, but if she wants to survive, then there is nothing left, because he is still a character in the game. Sherry became curious why he suddenly stopped, and the man asked in surprise what she had in her right hand. The main character, hearing this, understands that if he finds out, it's 1000% the end for her, and therefore he thinks that he should hide the needle with the tranquilizer in the folds of his clothes, but he doesn't know what to tell her, because nothing comes to mind. The girl smiles and asks what he means, then takes the flower and says that it's just a mandrake. Castle says that he doesn't care, and the little girl at this time thought that it was good that he didn't pay attention. But suddenly, the man pushes her against the wall and says that this is clear, and then asks if she is alone and where the other one is. Hearing this, the main character remembered that Adam had asked the same question. Then she asks what he's doing and claims she's not to blame. The gentleman says that she seemed strange from the very beginning and objects to everything, but at the same time keeps herself under control. The prince reports that usually when people see him, they either laugh or shake with fear. The little girl doesn't understand what kind of nonsense he's talking about, because she wonders who will make fun of her after seeing his disgusting character and terrifying muscles. The girl thought that he also destroyed everything there after 1 dose of the potion, and thinks that he is crazy, and lucky for him that he is strong. The gentleman claims that she acts as if she knows who he is, and then asks if she is really the pharmacist that Haley called. Shari smiled and explained that, as the Count said, an important guest had arrived from the capital. The man says he doesn't like her, and asks why she's covering her face. The girl asks him what he's talking about. The prince offered to show her face. Then the girl cast a spell to hide her beauty. The man claims that if she cannot show her face, he will not let her go. The little girl doesn't let me take off her hood and screams, saying that it's because of the scar, because she had an injury as a child, which is why half of her face is paralyzed. Sherry explains that she didn't recover in time, which is why there are scars left, and if anyone touches her, they will become infected with a terrible disease. The girl said that if he didn't mind, she could remove the spell and show him. Just then, she saw a sign above his head that the potion caused insomnia and lasted only a few seconds. The main character apologizes and then reminds him that it's time to take his insomnia medication. Castle smiled and asked what she felt when he pressed on her throat. She saw the message that the Nightmare Lord had stopped doubting her. The lady reports that she was in pain because she couldn't breathe. And then, looking at him, she thinks he wanted revenge on her for giving him the potion from a syringe and holding his mouth shut. The baby thinks that he is disgusting because he wanted to kill her for giving him medicine, and she even tried to touch him as little as possible. And the girl doesn't understand why he treats her as if she's a loser, and then says that because of the potion he wouldn't have died, but she almost went to the next world. The lady thinks that he just needed to endure it for 5 seconds, but he claims that he only held her throat for 5 seconds. Castle asks if she wants to check whether it was really 5 seconds or not. She says she doesn't and that it looks like she was mistaken. The girl doesn't understand why this scoundrel is threatening her with force. The prince says she can get it now. The little girl asks him in surprise what he's talking about. The man explains that her potion is for insomnia and health. Sherry asks if he's joking. However, she realizes it certainly wasn't, and she bribed him with the potion and ran away. Castle looks at the bottle and asks if this is all true, and she asks why she would lie to him. The girl explains that she is given the ingredients at the count's estate, and she brews the potion. The prince grabs her and then turns her over and shakes out everything he can from her. At this time, the main character thought that he was a scoundrel, and she would not care about such treatment for the rest of her life. And the gentleman asked if that was all. Well, naturally, she hid something, because she had a special cape in which she could bury many things. In the cape, only the user can view the storage location. Although it looks poor, it has many functions. Thanks to her, the baby was able to escape from Castle's hands, and he can now drink the potion himself, because the time designation has disappeared, and he will now take the medicine himself. The main character is thinking about whether it might be worth focusing on additional quests. Sherry asks when this item is used. Sarah explains that it's needed during the hunt for the centipede leader. The main character claims that she has not met any users who use it. Jin prints that no one found it, and therefore did not use it. And if you look closely at the map, you can find it. The little one thought that they wanted users to somehow miraculously find such a little one. Suddenly, the butler asks what she's talking about alone. Meanwhile, the girl is thinking about how ashamed she is. Sherry explains that she didn't say anything, but was simply looking for the servants' dining room. Bill says that it's good that he met her, because he just wanted to say something, and then suggests that she follow him because he will show her the way. The young lady smiled and said that he was kind, and thought that she was already busy, and did not understand why he was taking her somewhere again. The girl believes that it is unknown what he has planned, and therefore it is worth listening to him. The butler says that he almost forgot because tomorrow at 12 o'clock, she must take all the insomnia potion and go to the central staircase. The man says that if she leaves the potion and goes away, he will give her 50,000 gold. The centipedes are causing a disaster to break the seal and free themselves. When the end of the world comes, the freed monsters will provide them with the power to resurrect, which is why they are trying to drive the users and the pharmacist out of the county. This usually happens right before a disaster. The girl realizes that, judging by his proposal, there's a centipede inside him, too. The main character understands that there are still 3 whole days before the disaster, and it is too early, but she is interested in what is happening. Bill asks if she is coping with the count's task, and also how much potion she has left. Sherry realizes that she doesn't have time to chat with him, and can't ignore him either, and then says that it's about enough time to prevent a disaster. The butler again tells her not to forget what she must do tomorrow. The little girl realizes there are still 3 days left until the disaster, and doesn't know what's happening. Shari knows that this usually happens right before trouble starts, and she has a feeling that everything is happening a little faster than expected. The girl knows that it will be to her advantage if everything ends faster, and then says that 50,000 gold is not very much. Hearing this, the man screams and asks how she talks to them, and then claims that she can trade all her life and never see that kind of money, but then she refuses. The butler asks if she is ignoring his words, because he can easily call her a witch, and no one will bother to figure it out, and she will lose her head. At this time, the young lady thought that the adjutant really was a centipede. Bill, crying out, asks if this all seems like a joke to her. She assures him it isn't and thanks him for showing her the way. The butler agrees with her and calms down a little, and then says that he will not finish her off right now, but will show her what will happen if she does not obey orders. The man opened the door to the room where all the servants were, and the main character realized that a lot of centipedes had gathered in one place. The little girl understands that this is only possible for the main monster, and she realized that he is the butler. Sherry believes that as long as she has a potion and a tranquilizer gun, these centipedes are not scary to her. The main character used her protection, and after a few minutes thought that she hadn't sweated like that in a long time, and it seemed to her that she hadn't coped at all. Within minutes, the lady realized she had collected some essence. However, she wondered where the adjutant had gone. Suddenly, the door opens and the man screams and says that this is the criminal who attacked the servants of the Haley estate, and then orders to seize her. The little girl looked at these men, and she became interested in where Adam and the adjutant with him came from. Adam wonders if she's the one who harmed his servants. The girl sees a note that he feels a strong distrust of her. The main character thought that maybe she should pretend that she was unconscious, and understood that they could suddenly really expose her as a witch. The girl falls to the floor and says that this is a misunderstanding, and at that time she thought that next to Adam, this man is the senior butler Frank, and he is part of Adam's inner circle. Bill, screaming, asks what she's talking about, Then he turns to the Count and claims that this girl is trying to harm his family, and that's why she committed such atrocity. Adam tells everyone to be quiet, because first he will listen to what happened here, and therefore offers to explain. At this time, the main character does not even know what to say to her, and the butler screams and says that she wanted to harm the family. But the girl screamed and said that the senior maid came to her room during lunch and bought 3 bottles of sleeping potion. The lady reports that the maid said that many servants are worried about the criminal and therefore cannot sleep, so she needs a sleeping potion. Sherry claims there was a dosage error, and when she got here, they were already lying on the floor. The main character realizes she's actually lying and doesn't even blush. Then it's revealed that they most likely mixed the potion with food, and they're all exhausted. The baby claims that the effect exceeded expectations and asks to believe her. The knight reports that none of the servants died and they are all asleep, and they checked and there are no visible wounds, but he will call a doctor for a thorough examination. Head butler Frank asks why she didn't call the guards then, but simply stood among the unconscious people. The main character claims that this happened because of her potion, and she was trying to find some solution. Sherry, hearing this, I thought that he turned out to be smart, although he wouldn't say so from his face. Adam asks if there is a drop of lie in her words, and the lady assures that, of course it is. The Count tells her to let go, and when the girl heard this, she approached him and dodged, and then thanked him. The little girl thought that she was saved, and he really turned out to be a selfless white sword. After all his servants accused her, and she already thought that she would really go to the stake, but their intrigues did not work on Adam. Sherry says that it's time for her to go to the criminal, but the gentleman suggests waiting and asks if the reward is acceptable to her. The little girl asks in surprise what he is talking about, and at that moment, she thinks about when he managed to get so close. The girl wondered if this had been Adam's command, not the centipede's offer, and he asked if she was satisfied with the offered reward. The gentleman wonders if this isn't enough for her to drop the potion and leave. The girl doesn't understand why he needed to offer her such a thing, and suggests that perhaps there's a monster inside him too. The main character understands that, unlike other centipedes, he does not have blurred vision or dilated pupils, and therefore it is difficult for her to understand because his character is very calm. Sherry thought that first she should answer, because caution wouldn't hurt her. And then she says that it is true, and that's not enough. The butler screams and asks what kind of ungrateful girl she is, and how she will never earn that kind of money. The gentleman suggests they calm down and talk again tomorrow. The young lady agrees and says that she will then go to prison. As the main character was leaving, she thought that she needed to run before they pestered her again with strange questions. A girl asks if the main character can become a centipede. Ari writes that this scenario doesn't have settings that allow centipedes to possess the main character. Sherry wonders why Adam ordered the adjutant to expel her, and she doesn't understand how the author of the game cannot know this. Sierra writes that they can monitor the situation via chat, but cannot know all the changes in the game. The main character asks in surprise what they know. Then she decides to mind her own business. The girl thought that she had a bad feeling, and didn't know if it was really impossible to find out right away. But be that as it may, she had a specific task. Sherry was informed that she had arrived, but the gentleman said she was late. The lady thought he was being impudent, since she had only been gone half a day. The little girl noticed a lot of empty potion jars on the floor, and thought that she would definitely go crazy soon. And then screaming, she said that she told him to drink 1 potion an hour. Castle explains that he wanted to sleep, so he drank, and asks if there were any problems. The girl thought she must be crazy, because she couldn't understand how she could have trusted him and given him the potion. She knew that drinking less than 10 bottles in 3 hours was already abusive. Sherry ponders that if he drinks so much, he might develop resistance or, on the contrary, an addiction to the potion. After all, if Cassian falls asleep and thereby causes a catastrophe, she could die. The man explains that 1 dose per hour was not enough for him, and that the potion was of low quality since its effect was almost 0. The girl objects and claims that there is no problem with her potion, and does not understand how he can say that because of him. After all, she ran here like that. Castle says that he will have to complain to the Count that the pharmacist he hired wants the destruction of the Haley family. The main character angrily asks what this unthinkable accusation is, and then claims that she has already obtained the Count's confession that she is mentally healthy. Hearing this, the man thinks that the problem is in him, and therefore suggests that she talk less and better give him the rest of the potion and get out of here if she doesn't want to die. Hearing this, the little girl thought that he was rude and then said that she was not talking about who was to blame, but about the fact that an excess of the dose could lead to immunity to the potion. Sherry looked at the gentleman and thought that maybe he had already developed resistance and was trying to hide it, ashamed of such a quick effect. The game's main character, Castle Ludwig, was known for his cruel nature. Despite his horrific personality, fans said he actually had a kind heart, and that's why they loved him. It was all thanks to his actions throughout the game's history that Castle desperately tried to prevent the end of the world. But in fact, his body was covered in many scars from wounds he had inflicted on himself while trying to stay awake. Moreover, Fans were shocked when he put himself in danger and fought the monster alone. The girl understands that the fate of the world concerns him more than his own life, and he was probably confused by the fact that his body had developed an immunity to the potion. But most likely, he blames himself for having brought about the catastrophe through his own fault. The lady thinks he should still be aware of the situation and then asks if it's possible he's already developed a resistance to the potion. The gentleman asks how he knows this, because he thinks that she knows better, since she made it herself. The girl saw a message about the Nightmare Lord doubting her abilities, and yet his insolence still infuriates her. Sherry thinks that maybe she was hasty in her conclusions about immunity, but whatever the reason, one still shouldn't abuse the potion. The girl understands that someone must be watching him, because the problem is that this person is her. The lady informs him that tonight she will personally check whether he has developed immunity and how effective the medicine is, and therefore will hand out one bottle at a time. He should tell her immediately, and the man suggests that she do as she pleases. At this time, the main character realized that if she got too close, he could attack her again like last time, and then she quickly moved away from him. Casello asks what's going on, and orders her to quickly give him the potion. She tosses him one vial, and then sees a note stating that he dislikes her actions. The girl thinks the potion has reached him and doesn't know why he doesn't like it again. The man angrily asks what she's doing. Sherry explains that she simply handed over the potion to protect herself, and that she will continue to give him the potion in this way. The prince tells her to shoot the pistol better like before, but she thinks that this is a good idea, and an inscription appears saying that the Lord of Nightmares has an acute desire to finish her off. The girl knows that at the slightest thing, he immediately gets angry, and therefore she doesn't care about this sympathy, because in any case, Castle will act according to his own plan until the very end of the game. He is one of those who, for the sake of a quick and effective way to prevent a catastrophe, will make peace even with his enemy. The little girl thinks that since he has become interested, he will try to make a deal with her. Castle says that he is warning her for the last time, because he believes that it is better for her to give him all the remaining potions and leave. Sherry objects and says it's not allowed, and he asks why. The little girl says she needs to find out if she's developed an immunity to the potion, and thinks she'll only talk about what's relevant. The gentleman reports that some talentless ragamuffin is trying to snatch these measly pennies. Hearing this, the girl screams and claims that he hasn't even really seen her face yet says such things. The lady came closer to him, and he reminded her that she had just recently groveled before him and asked if Adam knew what she was really like. At this time, the girl read the message that the Lord of Nightmares was showing little interest in changing her character, and thought that he was impudent and even mocking. Sherry claims that she only treats politely those who do not cross the line of decency. And in general, this is her attitude. The main character understands that so much time has passed and she needs to invest the essence. But tonight, she won't be able to get it, and it's good that at least yesterday she managed to collect a lot. And therefore, we will have to try today. There are 2 days left before the disaster, and it will not be easy, but if we put all our efforts into it. The man reports that some pharmacist is trying to revive this sword. Then he asks how she knows about this ancient sword. Hearing this, the main character thought that he doubted her, but in the game he did not say anything about this, and then said that it was simply the Count's order. The little girl thought that Adam would not come to Castle before the end of the world anyway, and therefore considered this a convenient excuse. And then he says that the dark essence was also given to him by the Count himself. The man asks if he caught the darkness-absorbing centipede. The girl says that's true and doesn't understand why he suddenly went silent. However, she wonders how he knows about the centipede, since he's in prison and can't know what's going on in the county. Sherry suggests that maybe he's heard the legend of Halley County. The man approaches the girl, and she asks if he needs the potion. Castle says that she is not that stupid, but the girl thought that this is not the most important thing now, because first, she needs to find out whether he is immune to the potion and how effective it is. The little girl looked at her watch and thought that now she needed to check the potion's duration of action. After 25 minutes, she realizes that the duration of action does not decrease if she takes 2 portions per hour, but she thinks that these reserves should be enough. She just needs to make sure this time doesn't get shorter, and everything will be fine. She asks if it's better for him to take the potion every half hour now. Castle suggests giving him 30 bottles and getting lost, because she also needs to rest to brew the potion. Sherry tells him she's not resting, and he asks, surprised, if she's resting at all. She explains that it's the so-called calling of a pharmacist, and that she's simply very responsible. The main character thought that this was not a real body, and she did not feel tired even if she did not sleep. The girl says that since they have figured out the time of action, she will go to the Count, and then gives him the jars, and suggests using these watches to check the time, and drink 1 bottle at a time. She looked at the man and saw a message that the Lord of Nightmares doubted her health and felt a little regret looking at her. The little girl thought that maybe he was powerless because of the magical shackles, because they take away his physical and magical powers, but she only awakened his consciousness, and therefore she even felt a little sorry for him. Sherry doesn't know if she can complete the game only if Castle is active, and perhaps she can feel a little sorry for him. The main character tells him it's a top-tier potion and suggests he take it when he gets out. And then she thinks it's not because she's worried about him, it's all for her own good. But the man opened the bottle and drank it. The lady, screaming, asked what he was doing, since she had told him to drink it when she left. She realized that he had changed somehow, and then she came closer to him, but the man attacked her. And at that time the girl thought that she would die. Castle claims she fled like some kind of rat. She read a message that the Nightmare Lord had a slight interest in her. The girl thought that he was just laughing at the fact that she ran away out of fear, and thought that this was truly the worst game, and that it was very hard for her. The main character reflects on the fact that since she has figured out the dosage of the potion, she does not need to wash, but she needs to restore her strength, and thinks that she should take a bath. When the little girl opened the door to her room, she saw two men looking for something. She asked what they were doing, since she would have taken a bath and found it herself. The main character used her secret weapon and said that she doesn't know what they are looking for, which spoiled her mood. The little girl thought that it would be possible to sort this out in a moment with the help of a potion of light, but she doesn't know why it's so difficult for her to just take a bath. Suddenly, the maids enter the room and, screaming, ask the pharmacist what she is doing there. The maids, surprised, ask if she killed their servants. The lady explains that she simply stunned the thieves who were trying to steal something from her, and they lied about it being the Count's order. Sherry insists she didn't kill them. The head maid turns to Olivia and suggests reporting the incident to the butler and calling the knights. The maid tells the lady to go to the Count because he is looking for her and believes that he has started calling her often. The girl says that this is true and thinks that he could have stopped looking for her and asks why he called her. The maid says she was simply told to transfer her. Hearing this, the protagonist doesn't understand whether she's been caught out again. Her something. Then she claims that she doesn't remember buying the sleeping potion from her. The maid explains that the Count told her, and therefore wanted to ask if she really bought the potions from her. The main character claims that the fact that she doesn't remember anything is because the Count doesn't know. The woman smiled and insisted that, of course, he does. Hearing this, the girl understood why he had called her then. The maid informs the Count that the pharmacist Shari has arrived. He says she has finally arrived and that she hasn't been in her room all night, then asks where she has been. The girl read the message that Adam Haley felt a little hostility towards her, and she realized that he was very angry. Shari claims that she was near the criminal and asks if he was looking for her. The man asks if this has anything to do with breaking the chains that bind the criminal. She says that's right. At that moment, she thought she knew he already knew everything. The lady explains that she tried to give him the potion, but he resisted, and so she had to make it so that he could take the medicine himself. The main character apologizes for telling him late. The Count asks about her lie about selling the sleeping potion to the head maid. The lady read the notices that Adam Haley was disappointed and suspicious of her. Sherry explains that this potion has a side effect of memory loss. Adam says that this is the first time he's heard of it, because the sleeping potion can make him sick, but memory loss isn't one of the side effects, and he personally took it. So her lies work on him. Hearing this, the main character was surprised, and she remembered that Adam himself needed the sleeping potion, which is why he hired her, and she understands that she can no longer hide the truth. Sherry explains that she was actually hunting monsters that were parasitizing on rumors and collecting dark essence. And this was possible with the help of a potion with light properties. The girl explains that she received an order from a criminal and at that time thought that now she was convinced that Adam knew about the centipede. The main character believes that the game's scenario is developing faster than it should, since the user should have intervened initially. And after which, Adam learned about the centipede, but now he already knows about the existence of a monster on his territory. The little girl wondered why he hadn't taken action. The gentleman said he didn't understand why he needed to. The girl says that if she had known, she would have answered long ago. Adam claims he said the man was a serious criminal, but doesn't understand why she's helping him. The pharmacist explains that she is simply doing a job for which she will be paid, and that destroying low-level monsters will not affect his estate in any way. The main character reflects on the fact that he should believe in such a reason. Her goal is to force the main characters to destroy the boss, prevent changes in Castle, and preserve this world. The little girl believes that there is no need to get close to the characters, and if she manages to make them friends with Castle, they themselves will do everything to ensure that the game ends. The girl understands that this requires mending the relationship between Adam and Castle. Then she bows and says that if he's figured everything out, she'll go. The Count says that he has a question, and then asks if she is a warrior or a witch who wants to harm him. The main character realizes that she is neither a warrior nor a witch, nor one thing nor the other, and then reveals that she is an ordinary pharmacist who works for a fee. The baby understands that she is an ordinary person who wants to finish the game in order to survive, but she cannot say it. The lady claims she doesn't harm others for money, The gentleman says he appreciates her honesty. The notification stated that Adam Haley had temporarily stopped feeling hostility towards her and now had little trust. The main character, following the gentleman, thought that she had never seen anything like this in any video and thought that maybe this was a secret passage. She didn't know that there was a secret door hidden behind the bookcase in the office, and she doesn't think that Adam will try to attack her and assumes that maybe he wants to give her the ingredients for the potion. And when the little girl entered the room, she realized these weren't potion ingredients at all. She saw a girl lying on the bed. Serena is the daughter of the Elder Count and Adam's younger sister. She appears to be about 9 or 10 years old and bears visible burn marks. The girl asks why she has scars on her body. He asks if she's heard of a disease that makes it impossible to see the sun. The lady replies that she is hearing about this for the first time, and he explains that it is a rare disease, the cause of which is unknown even to the court physician. The main symptom is sunburn, which occurs due to sunlight. At first, Serena had a spot on her arm, but over time, the sore spot began to grow. The skin began to peel as if burned, and a purulent discharge appeared. The Count explains that he wanted to show her a bright and rosy world, but there was no way. And Dam explains why it's so dark there even during the day. The main character thought it looked like he gave her a painkiller and then simply put her to sleep with a potion. The girl understands that he really needed the sleeping potion, so he knows about its side effects. The little girl assumes that he probably carefully studied the composition of the potion before giving it to his sister. Serena tells her brother that she is in pain, and the main character looked at this girl and thought that she was a centipede. Adam approaches the pharmacist and asks if she has any sleeping potion with her. Sherry ponders what it means that a darkness-consuming centipede has also entered Adam's sister's body. The baby thinks that she can be destroyed with light, but Serena doesn't need to avoid it. The girl knows that her only weapon is a potion containing the light of the sun, and she gives it to her. The system reports that Adam Haley is kindly disposed toward her. The gentleman says he's in her debt. Hearing this, the main character thought that everything had only gotten more complicated. Then she says that he hired her, and she did what she had to do. Adam says that she is quite modest, and therefore he will give her one piece of advice. The man claims that it is enough to collect the dark essence, and therefore she should take the money from the adjutant and quietly leave this place. Hearing this, the main character was surprised because she does not know what will happen to the estate without her, and then asked about it. Shari is wondering what's going on with the servants possessed by monsters and the criminal, but she's supposed to be giving him the potion. The gentleman says that he suddenly has one question, and then says whether it is worth it, instead of protecting him and sacrificing his only relative. Adam says that if she understood everything, then she can move. The little girl doesn't understand whether he's really going to just watch the end of the world. In the game, Adam was unable to prevent the disaster and committed suicide. She doesn't understand why he made such a choice, and he assumes that he suddenly found out that the main centipede was in his sister's body, which was holding her hostage, so he did not take any action. To protect the county, it is necessary to sacrifice Serena, and therefore, Adam's behavior is now somewhat understandable to the main character. For the sake of his only sister, he decided to give up the county. Suddenly, the man asks why she is standing there and not leaving. The little girl thought that whatever the reason, if Adam decided to stop protecting the county, then this problem had to be solved at any cost. Sherry assures that she can help him, and at that time, she thought that this is how she can get out of this damn game and stay alive. The girl says that she will catch the main centipede that devours the darkness and find a way to destroy the monsters without harming Miss Serena. The message indicated that Adam Haley still considers her untalented. The gentleman asks what she can do, and what is the point of betting and taking risks when the loss is obvious? The lady says that she knows one way, and in any case she will win or not, and then asks if there is only one outcome. Shari asks if he still doesn't trust her. Then she says that if she manages to destroy the main centipede, that would be good. If not, he won't be particularly surprised and will simply kick her out of the county as planned, because he too knows that every cloud has a silver lining. Adam says that he knows this very well, but he cannot trust her if she does not even show her face, and therefore he has no trust or hope for such a person. The Count believes that there is some sense in her words, because every cloud has a silver lining, and if her plan fails, she will regret not taking the money and leaving, and she will not have such a chance again. The man looked at the girl in surprise and asked if she really didn't care at all. The main character reflects on the fact that now he says that he has no hope for anything, but out of despair, a thread of hope has already appeared in his eyes. The girl thinks that he is just a character inside the game, but his desperation and strong desire are very clearly felt. Sherry says that although it will be difficult to completely heal Miss Serena, she will try to find a way. The notice states that Adam Haley has little hope and little trust in her. The little girl then suggests doing just that, and asks if he will allow her to leave the estate for his mission. The young lady suggests not to worry about the potion for the criminal, since she gave him some in reserve. Adam asks if she decided to act immediately, and it is unclear what kind of creature she is, and then leaves. Sherry thought that if he understands who she is, then he will no longer be a player, but a real person. But still, he is no longer so hostile towards her. The main character thought that she couldn't waste time and should start implementing the plan. A chat with Miss Sherry has begun. Sarah writes that she's finally here, and as soon as you open your mouth, verbal diarrhea pours out. The girl asks why they didn't tell her that Adam had a sister, because she understands that he had a reason. Shari wonders why they didn't warn him that he has a sister, and that a centipede has taken over her. Ari suggests that Miss Sherry calm down, because they also cannot know all the details. The main character asks in surprise how it is possible not to know about the announcement of a character who did not originally exist. Jinwoo asks what the complaints are, and then explains that in the description of Adam's family tree, there was a mention of a sister, and asks if she saw it. Sarah writes that, as she was already told, they cannot know about all the changes, and random distribution is what was promised. The girl screams and says that Adam's sister almost never showed up, and she doesn't understand what a stupid percentage of probability this is. Jinwoo thinks that she herself did not see it, and now she is shifting the blame onto them. Sherry angrily lay down on the floor and said that a centipede was parasitizing her. Sunlight was dangerous for her, and she didn't understand what to do now, and her head was all in disarray. Sarah writes that it is obvious that they were unable to warn her in advance, and therefore will naturally help cope. The main character asks in surprise how they can help her. Jin writes that then they will destroy the monster and settle the issue with Adam. The lady claims that although he is a character in the game, they are only trying to do this. Sarah writes that they are still uncomfortable that they cannot help her, so they have prepared a special reward for the destruction of the main centipede. The girl says that she doesn't really care about it now, because it's better for them to answer her question. The lady wonders if it is true that sunlight is not necessary to destroy the centipede. The genie writes that this is true, but if you use the potion, only the light of the sun remains. Sherry says that she wants to use not a potion, but a chandelier made by sulfur, and then asks how it works. Hearing this, Sarah says with delight that finally someone asked about it. The lady explains that this chandelier is a secret weapon crafted by one of the Haley family's ancestors. It was created to combat the forces of darkness. Then, Sarah told the story of Haley County, which the main character hadn't even asked about. And finally, she explained how to use it. There's a lot that needs to be done to get this old chandelier up and running, and you need to hurry. And the first thing on the list is hunting for mud monsters that she must destroy. The main character understands that if she destroys the mud monsters, she will be able to get the item, but she knows that it is still not easy, because she needs to collect 100 of them, and thinks it's a lousy game. Second, she turned to the maid and asked her to do what she had said. Sherry thought about the fact that she personally finished off the centipede that was inside the senior maid, so she could be trusted, although she was initially loyal to the count. The maid tells the lady to now go straight to her room and not go anywhere on the way. After all, if the butler sees her, he will start scolding her, and lately he has become very irritable, and this has not happened before. Hearing this, the main character thought that this bastard took the side of the adjutant, and after that incident, he picked on her several times. The main character remembers how he always reproached her for walking around the house in a terrible state and wandering around the house late. The lady wondered if he had always been like this, or if it was the centipede. However, she believed that if his character had changed, it meant he had definitely been captured by a monster. The maid says that it seems like their butler is getting older, and therefore suggests not paying attention to him because he will always be like this. The pharmacist says that first she will take a bath and asks the maid to bring her a man's shirt and trousers. In just a few minutes, the baby says that now she feels much better, because after the bath she somehow felt like she wanted to live. Sherry remembered about Castle, and thought that she gave him enough potion to last 10 hours. However, she thinks that it is still worth checking him just in case. The maid knocks on the door and announces that she has brought clothes for her. The pharmacist says she was just about to go get them, and thanks her. The little girl thought that his clothes were already dirty and needed to be tidied up, and it looked like there was more there than she asked for. The maid claims that she did nothing, and therefore offers at least something to eat. The main character thought that NPCs don't really feel hunger, but it would be strange if she didn't eat at all. The pharmacist thanks her and says that she will definitely have a snack while she works. The maid suggests taking an umbrella with her, since it is daytime now and the sky is covered with heavy clouds and it will probably rain. The little girl thought that this was strange because, according to the scenario, the weather should not be gloomy, and if her assumption was correct, then this was a harbinger of an impending disaster. The girl looked at the dark sky and thought that monsters had already begun to flock here. Shari wondered if Cassell had already developed immunity to the potion. When the lady opened the door to the room, she saw that the Haley County guards were already there. She thought that, whatever the criminal, this was too much. The girl understands that they look too cheerful, but the look is normal, which means it's not a centipede. On the contrary, the monster would have made Castle fall asleep. However, if such mockery of a human amuses them, then these two are far worse than monsters. The lady tells them to prepare for a flick, then delivers the blows. The men fall to the floor in pain. Meanwhile, the main character ran up to the prince and screamed, telling him that he couldn't sleep and therefore suggested that he wake up right away. The little girl understands that he is almost falling asleep, and therefore thinks that she needs to give him the potion quickly. Sherry suddenly realized that she didn't take her gun with her, and when she looked out the window, she realized that the monsters were already here. The little girl believes that if the end of the world begins now, she will not be able to do anything, and then in reality, her body will die. The main character understands that she cannot allow this to happen, and since this is what happened, she drank the bottle of potion and passed the liquid that she had in her mouth to the prince through a kiss. Sherry understands that there is only one option left, which she used, and, as it turned out, the harbingers of disaster began to disappear. The girl realized that it was her first kiss, but she thinks that it doesn't count because they are inside the game. Castle asks in surprise what she just did to him. The message stated that the Nightmare Lord was very displeased with her behavior. The little girl realized that if he found out, it would be the end for her, but then insisted that she had done nothing wrong. The prince claims that she usually doesn't come so close to him, but she quickly moves away and claims that it's true. Sherry explains that he was almost falling asleep, and these guards were cutting him, and she wanted to prevent this and was about to give him a potion. The man asks in surprise if he fell asleep. The girl assures him that he seemed half asleep and then tells him to look at these wounds. The lady offers to treat them and change clothes, since she just took new clothes from the maid. The gentleman looked at the guards who were lying on the floor and asked if she had taken them out alone. The girl explains that she came up behind him unnoticed and knocked him out with a rock. He says that they are, after all, in the count's service. The man claims that if they later tell the owner everything, she might get into trouble for this. The main character thanks him for his concern and assures him that everything is fine because she believes that the Count trusts her. Sherry thought that she had seen so many notifications and she didn't think that this would anger him. Otherwise, he would turn out to be petty. The pharmacist says that she will drag the guards out the door and let him change his clothes and eat what is in the basket. The girl looked at the guards and thought she'd like to give them a good beating. But during the battles after the disaster, people will be needed. Shari says that it's time for her to go, but suddenly she looks into the open door and thinks that the negative characters are the most beautiful, and she shouldn't give in to his tricks, because he's a villain, a bad and sexy one. And the man asks if she'll look at him like that. The little girl insists that she wasn't looking at all, but then she saw him take off his pants and scream, asking what he was doing and covering her eyes with her hands. The gentleman says that, as she sees, he is changing clothes, and the girl asks if he could change clothes when she leaves. Castle reminds us that she said she didn't watch, but the little girl insists she didn't watch. The man asks if it is not customary to take off one's capes and give them to those in need. She asks in surprise why she should do this. The prince explains that most people, both men and women, do this when they see him. The girl thinks he's bragging about his incredible beauty. He asks if that's true. The little girl says that objectively he is of course cute, but not to her taste. The gentleman says she's always groping him. The girl asks what he's talking about because it's good he came to his senses. Sherry asks if the guards always treat him like this. He insists it's none of her business. The girl thinks that he is stubborn, and then offers to tell her, because who knows, maybe she can help him. The message stated that the Nightmare Lord was experiencing unpleasant feelings due to her unexpected behavior. The gentleman is interested in what some pharmacist girl can do for him. She claims that she could have found some other way, and at that time she thought that she had to leave before he got even more angry. The little girl says that in any case, he should treat the wounds and eat a little, since she thinks that drinking only potions all the time is also not very good. Castle asks if she feels sorry for him. She objects, explaining that it would simply be difficult for him if he became dependent on the potion. The gentleman claims that he still cannot try normally, and the feeling of satiety can drive him to sleep. The lady explains that she is here to prevent this, and if it seems that he is about to fall asleep, she will wake him up. Castle approaches the girl and says he finds it hard to believe. Meanwhile, the message says the Nightmare Lord has a slight interest in her. The girl doesn't understand what kind of reaction this is, and assumes that he doesn't remember this life-saving kiss. The man says there's nothing surprising about it, because that's the fate of criminals, and compared to torture, jokes with food are nothing. The gentleman reports that there will always be those who will mock prisoners. Hearing this, the main character thought that he himself was pretending that he was not going to tell her anything. Castle's general behavior, The girl believes that he is not one of those who is afraid of torture. Sherry ponders what it means that there was some story that even she doesn't know about. The master says that from now on she will come and personally give him the potion, and the little girl asks why he doesn't like it when she touches him. Castle explains that he doesn't like that she throws the potion at him as if she wants to mock him. The pharmacist asks who would throw this expensive potion as a joke, knowing that the price of the potion is equal to the price of gold. The gentleman says that there is one crazy woman who is very similar to her in her behavior. The girl thought he was an idiot, because she was the one. And then she said that that man probably had his reasons. The prince says that even if there were, he thinks he will never know about it because he will immediately finish her off when he finds her. Hearing this, the main character thought that now she had two secrets that he shouldn't know about. The lady explains that in any case, she does not want to come close to him because suddenly, he will get angry again and want to finish her off. The little girl looked at him and thought that she became even more scared because of his words. The gentleman promises that he will not strangle her anymore, and she, surprised, asks if he only means strangling. The girl says that suddenly he wants to break her arms or legs and grab her by the chest or hit her temples. The man, surprised, asks if he's some kind of demon killer. Then he vows he won't threaten her in any way while he's in prison. Hearing this, the little girl thought that she didn't know why he had suddenly changed, but it was good that he had made such a promise, although she still felt uneasy. Castle reports that he forgot to say that the potion's effect was reduced to 10 minutes. Hearing this, the main character asks in surprise how one can speak so calmly about such things. The girl understands what it means. After all, the potion's duration of action has been shortened and, given the time before the disaster, she barely made it in time. Sherry believes that if he drinks the potion every 10 minutes, he will undoubtedly become addicted. The little girl thought about making a neutralizer. After all, it's a treatment for addiction caused by excessive consumption of the potion. However, the lady believes that the monster needed for the crafting lives too far from Haley County. Sherry thinks that she will be very busy tonight and she does not have time for this, so she will put off making the neutralizer until later. The main character reflects on the fact that if she manages to complete the task and prevent the disaster, then the curse of Castle will calm down for a while. He will immediately go to the capital, led by the Knights of Adam, to deal with those who overthrew him from the throne and reclaim his throne. And if no catastrophe occurs, then Castle will not be punished. Initially, it was necessary to persuade a user close to Adam to help Castle. However, the main character wants to thank Adam for what he did for her, and it doesn't matter as long as there is a good result. Therefore, when Castle returns to the palace, he will be able to hire a good pharmacist and receive treatment for addiction. Sherry realizes that she needs to address more urgent issues. But suddenly, guards enter the room and address the apothecary. The man claims she is accused of injuring Earl Haley's subjects and stealing property. The guard reported that the Count had ordered her capture. The little girl was surprised to hear this, as he had said he trusted her and therefore considered those words a stab in the back. The main character won't forgive him for this. The guard tells her they'll give her a chance to leave on her own and therefore suggests she get out quickly. Sherry thought that in fact, she had not stolen anything, but had asked the senior maid for a favor. However, she believes that everything is probably going according to plan, although she could not have imagined that she would be captured in such a pathetic manner. The little girl understands that she must return before midnight and complete the quest to revive the sword. The pharmacist claims that it really wasn't her, but the prince who grabbed her hand and asked what she was doing. Castle asks if she thinks she will stay safe if she goes with them, and the lady asks if he is afraid that she will no longer be able to bring him the potion. The girl says that if she is captured, she will ask to be put in jail with him, and then she will be able to brew potions constantly. The little girl says that the Count will like it too, and he will be able to use her services for free. The guard asks why she doesn't come out, and he counts to 3, and if she doesn't come out, then he will grab her personally. The knights grab the girl, and at the last minute she managed to throw the bag to the prince and quietly told him to drink on time. Castle looked after the girl and thought that she really didn't know why they were taking her away, and judging by her behavior, she wasn't a complete idiot. The man thought that before this she had lied to him that it was beneficial for her, and he was ready to finish her off. But seeing how she was trying to do her job, the gentleman thought that this was a pharmacist, and he didn't know who she was, but he thought it was worth keeping an eye on her if, of course, she returned alive. When the girl entered the room, she thought that at first glance there were more than 10 people there, and also Adam Haley. The little girl suggests that it looks like he called those servants who have a certain influence. Sherry realizes this is a good way to frame her as a criminal and finish her off. She thinks it's most likely the adjutant's doing, but it's impossible to tell right away. The main character reflects on the fact that there are probably servants there who have been possessed by a centipede, and since this adjutant is their leader, if she tries, she will be able to collect a lot of dark essence today. The butler asks in surprise what the expression on her face is, and then turns to the Count and reminds him that he told him that she was a witch who came specifically to harm him. And at this time, Sherry thought that she didn't even know when he managed to see her face, and she didn't like it at all. The man screams and claims that there are witnesses, and that they won't get away with her lies like yesterday. The guard says that this scum needs to be punished, and then says that they tried to feed the prisoner and she used dark magic on them. Hearing this, the main character realized that they were the bastards whom she had knocked out yesterday, and if she had known, she would have banned them. Hearing this, Adam says that it turns out that the Count's knights were killed by some ordinary pharmacist. Frank claims that she is simply a very powerful witch, and, moreover, it is very suspicious that after her appearance in the estate, the servants constantly end up unconscious. After all, yesterday in the dining room, when all the servants suddenly fell asleep, she was among them, and this girl was the only one who was not sleeping. The butler claims that this is understandable, since she is trying to harm Earl Haley and the entire estate. The Count turns to the lady and asks if she wants to say anything. And at this time, the main character thought that she needed to react calmly, because she already had an excuse ready just to avoid getting upset. Shari explains that she wanted to behave quietly, but it won't work because in this estate there are people who are parasitized by monsters. The lady says it seems most of them are infected now. Hearing this, the butler, surprised, asks what nonsense she's talking about. The main character claims that naturally they have nothing to worry about, since with this potion she can easily destroy the monsters, and it has no effect on ordinary people. The potion consists of the stems and leaves of plants that have been exposed to sunlight. Once it touches the monsters' bodies, they will briefly lose consciousness. Those people who had fainted before were also in that state because of the monsters. The maid claims that this is true, and lately some of the servants seem to be angry all the time, and after they became unconscious and woke up, they returned to their previous state. Hearing this, the main character thought that the senior maid was a good girl, and thanks to her, they gave strength to her words. Frank comes closer to the girl and says that she has enough lies and calls her shameless. He asks how they can trust her strange land. The butler claims that he will prove that this criminal is lying, and then opens the bottle and gives the guy a drink. Frank screams and offers to look, because he just wanted to prove that the witch was lying and Joseph died. The servants scream and say that this witch should be punished, because it is terrible since she killed a man. The main character thought that she had underestimated the adjutant and realized that suddenly they would really make a witch out of her. Sherry understands that if she is executed, she will have to start over from the village of Dover, and then it will be difficult to take action when Castle wants to sleep. The little girl understands that it is already difficult to look after him because of the new immunity, and that something irreparable might happen while she is away. The young lady understands that she cannot allow this because it is a misunderstanding, and then takes the bottle and opens it and pours the liquid onto her hand. The apothecary offers to take a look, as it has no effect on her. At this point, the senior maid calls her a witch and suggests she step away. The main character thought that she was finished, because now even the senior maid was afraid of her and she didn't understand what to do. The Count says that it was he who ordered the apothecary to destroy the monsters, and therefore he should be the first to test her potion. The gentleman asks if she's sure it has no effect on a normal person. The little girl assures him that it does, but then looks at the gentleman in surprise, unsure what he's planning to do. Adam drank the bottle and said that it seemed to have no effect on him, and then asked if they believed it now. The servants say the Count is unharmed and the potion is indeed safe. The girl thinks he's behaving as befits a protagonist. She thought he was straightforward and calm. Shari believes that this proves that he is desperately trying to save Serena, and she somehow felt heavy in her soul. Adam insists he's still alive, and doesn't understand why Joseph died. Hearing this, the butler cries out that perhaps the Count is in league with that witch. The main character doesn't understand how one can insult the Count, and thinks that maybe the adjutant himself fell under the influence of the monsters, and he, an idiot, decided to insult the owner of the estate as well. The lady understands that now the other servants will begin to doubt him. The gentleman suggests checking who is right, and orders the pharmacist to distribute the potion to everyone. The girl invites everyone to come to her, as she will give each of them a little potion. The lady assures them that everything is fine, and nothing terrible will happen to them. The main character says that those standing aside should also come forward. The butler, screaming, insists that this is unacceptable and asks the Count how he can treat them like this. Shari believes that everything was resolved easier than she thought, because now the adjutant will not be able to do anything, and she will destroy the low-ranking centipedes. The little girl thinks that she will get through to their leader, the adjutant. Frank says that if they continue, it will reflect on Miss Serena, whom he brought in the visa. The notification says that the butler Frank is a centipede that absorbs darkness, and he too was possessed by monsters. The head maid asks the master butler what he is doing and why he brought the sick Madam Serena there. Adam asks Frank what he's up to, and the little girl thinks about the black veins on his face and how he's different from the other centipedes. Frank claims that he and the adjutant were closest to him, sir, but lately he cannot understand why he behaves this way. Shari believes that if there is a centipede inside, his mind should also be under its influence, And the butler, screaming, says that no matter what happens, he is obliged to protect them. Adam asks what he means. Frank says he's told him many times about the strange things that happen to the servants, but he has not taken any measures to solve the problem, and he still needs to keep better control of the prisoners. And the main character does not understand how this is possible, because he remains conscious. The lady thinks that maybe these black veins appear due to resistance to pressure from the centipede, and that he also protects Haley County. The gentleman asks him to get up, and the man asks if this is all because of Madame Serena. After all, for her sake, he is ready to abandon tens of hundreds of residents of the county. The count suggests that he choose his words, because he is not saying that Madame Serena has no value for them. These lands have long been home to many who toiled there. Frank cries out, begging them not to abandon them. The butler claims that he must finish off the monsters that have taken over the estate, deal with the criminal, and protect these lands. Hearing this, the girl thought about what it meant that the butler knew everything, and despite Adam's constant advice, he actually acted as if he didn't care about the estate. The little girl believes that it must have been difficult for the butler, who had been loyal to him for so many years, to endure such treatment. Sherry reflects on how she can understand Adam, who is willing to do anything for his only sister, and she thinks everything is complicated. The gentleman claims that he never abandoned them, and the butler then asks why he doesn't take action. Adam says that as soon as the seal falls from the tower, Haley's fate will end, because this is the will of the ancestors, and therefore he was simply preparing to accept it. Frank screams and claims that this can't be, because the seal has remained unchanged for the last 500 years. The gentleman reports that no matter how hard he tried, he could not prevent this, and the tower's seal began to collapse. The man claims that this cannot be and does not understand whether everyone has abandoned them, and that very monster from the legend has been resurrected. Hearing this, the main character thought about what was happening. In addition to the catastrophe of the sword's resurrection and the lack of time in the tower, the seal was also being destroyed. The girl doesn't understand why it was necessary to send a criminal from the Empire to the Haley estate. They did this not because they trusted the Count, but because they knew about the seal and simply planted a time bomb here. After all, these lands will still be destroyed one day, and without Castle, even if Adam asks for help from neighboring lands, no one will respond to the call of the one who was abandoned by the Empire itself. Sherry thought that since she couldn't solve this problem on her own, Castle was imprisoned in the county of Haley so that the main characters could meet as soon as possible. The little girl believes that when she resurrects the sword, the seal will close again, and therefore it must be done quickly. The butler takes Serena in his arms and says that if they want to prolong her life even a little, then they must listen to his orders. Serena immediately, and then he asks what he has in mind. The butler orders him to shut up, and then, screaming, announces that from now on he will be the master of the estate. Adam screams and says that he cannot be allowed to harm Serena, and then orders the adjutant to be captured. Sherry doesn't understand when there were so many monsters, and quietly asks the maid if she forgot about her request, and when she gives the signal, she should act. The heroine thought that everything was ready, and now she had to hurry. The adjutant, crying out, asked how they were enjoying his strength, then explained that it was all thanks to his father. After all, it was because of him that he had to come here and look after some brat whose lips were still wet. Adam, surprised, asks what he's talking about. The monster replies that he seems to have forgotten, but the Kendricks were once an honorable family in the East. The adjutant reports that because of one fleeting mistake, they lost everything, and his father forgot about his pride and wanted to borrow money from his dad, with whom he was closely acquainted, but he turned away from them. The man says that their family was ruined, and he prayed that they would not be scattered all over the world. And then, screaming, he claims that it is all because of his family. The Count says that he will fix it, and then reports that his father came then to ask for money not to save his family, but to cover debts from card games. Adam believes he should be grateful that the previous Earl allowed him to work as an adjutant here. The monster tells him to shut up if he doesn't want to see his sister die, and orders him to give him the family seal right now. Then he'll have mercy and let her live, and then he'll make her his wife, because that's much better than his dry, unfeeling attitude. Shari screams and says that it is so disgusting that she can't listen to it anymore. The adjutant asks the pharmacist when she managed to do this. The girl asks what the difference is, and then, with a snap of her fingers, all the lamps go out and the magic suddenly stops. The Haley Estate Magic Disabling Device is an artifact that temporarily neutralizes all magic, used by the owner of the estate. The maid opened the curtain, and the others asked why she did it. The man explained that it wasn't sunlight, but moonlight. All the people were surprised, because the lamp on which the moon fireflies were lit up. Insect monsters that take in moonlight and reflect it like fireflies. Serena is not allowed to touch sunlight, and the girl believes that this is why she needed to replace the light source for the chandelier with something. The little girl had to work hard to find them in the ground. The monster, surprised, asks what kind of joke she was playing. He calls the main character an idiot, and asks if she thinks she can defeat him with some bugs. Shari thought that everything seemed ready and she could begin. Then she announced that in the west, where all the darkness descends, let the blinding light of the sun come with them. The girl feels ashamed to say it out loud, but this is an unreal world. The adjutant asks, surprised, what she's up to. The baby says that in place of the sword that fills the valley of despair with light and abundance, let the glory of Haley dwell there. The monster screams and tells her to shut up, because he doesn't know what she's up to. But if she doesn't stop now, he'll finish her off. The main character quickly pushed away the man who fell to the floor. An old chandelier that has lost its light absorbs the light. This absorption process can take a long time due to prolonged inactivity. Adam asks the pharmacist what she is doing and suggests running away. And at this time, the girl thought that she would not begin to act immediately after the spell, and she did not imagine it that way. The monster asks in surprise if this is all she can do, and if he was just warming up in vain. The Count screams and asks the pharmacist when this chandelier will start working, because at this rate he will soon die. The monster says that this is good, because he was always underfoot, and therefore thinks that one way to get rid of him. Suddenly, a notification came that the old chandelier that had lost its light was activated, and the main character quickly took advantage of this. An old chandelier, having lost its light, destroyed the darkness-consuming centipedes. And the main character says her efforts all this time weren't in vain. The lady reports that now you can safely collect the essence, since she managed to complete the quest with the sword. Sherry looked out the window and thought that it seemed like the magic had been interrupted because the moon was blocked, and now she had to go collect the essence. The monster says he worked so hard to achieve this and can't just leave, and when the girl sees him, she can't understand why he's still alive. The little girl thinks it's probably because the head of the centipedes is stronger than the others, and the monster asks if they thought he'd die so easily. The adjutant heads towards Serena, and at that time, the main character thought that she didn't want to use her skills in front of others. Suddenly, a notification informs that the old chandelier that has lost its light is ready for use, and the lady casts a spell. Meanwhile, the butler, Frank, shields the young lady's body. A system message informs that the old chandelier, having lost its light, has destroyed the darkness-consuming centipede. Sherry thought that it seemed that the head of the centipedes was finished off by Adam's blow, and that everything seemed to be okay with Serena. Adam turns to the apothecary and asks if she can save his butler. She says he can't be revived, and appears to have died from the monster's venom. The master was very upset, having lost such a good man. The maid says that the master butler remained loyal to the Haley family until the very end, and thinks he would have considered it an honor. The man says that this is true because he always said that he would die in this place. The little girl doesn't understand why there's such a bad ending. The notification says that Sarah sent her 100,000 gold as a reward. Ari sent her 3 sun allergy remedies. She said she had a special reward in store for her. It turned out to be a potion that would help heal Serena. Hey, it wasn't much help, because she was worried about the little girl being in such a state. The main character understands that she needs to think positively. And of course it's sad that the butler ended up dying, but no one else was hurt. The little girl knows that they also managed to obtain a healing potion. The gentleman says that perhaps the butler was right, and he has no right to continue to defend this place. Adam believes that it would be better for each of them to live their own lives until the seal is opened. The lady turns to the Count and asks what he is talking about, and where he wants to send them. The man says that she should leave as far away from here as possible because he will pay all the expenses. Sherry wondered why he was trying to do everything alone, and knew he shouldn't ruin it for her at a time like this. The girl shows the medicine, and the gentleman asks in surprise what she is doing. The little girl explains that with the help of this potion, one can cure Miss Serena's illness. Adam, surprised, asks if it can really heal his sister. The pharmacist offers to give her this potion before dawn, and 3 days after she sees the first rays of the rising sun, she will be completely healed. The main character reflects on the fact that she never thought she would ever see Adam so excited. The maid turns to the Count and says that she congratulates him, because she was so looking forward to when her mistress would be able to go outside again. The maid reports that Serena can now run around the fields of the Haley estate. The man asks if they are afraid of the approaching catastrophe. The maid says that if she says no, it would be a lie. The maid says that they do not want to become cowards and run away from here, and they will stay by his side and fight to the end. The master says that he, Adam Haley, the manager of these lands, treats their will with all respect, and together they will protect this place. At this time, the main character thought that she had only helped a little, and the situation began to change. Haley himself protects these lands, and the people there are very straightforward and hardened. Sherry thinks that they will manage without her help, but it's time for her to go to castle. The man approaches the girl and apologizes, and she assures him that everything is fine. The man asks if her name is Sherry, then says her name and thanks her again. The notifications indicate that Adam Haley feels guilty about her and is more interested in her than usual. At this point, the main character realizes he no longer calls her the pharmacist, and the gentleman claims that thanks to her, he was able to get rid of the monsters and save Serena. Adam asks her to accept his apology for being rude to her this morning. The little girl insists it's okay, because she didn't do it for praise. The gentleman says there's no need to be modest, because his family owes her a great debt. The main character thought he was speaking as if she'd done something truly good. The girl asks what debt he is talking about, since she doesn't understand anything, and whether all of this is included in her payment for her work. Sherry thought that she did it because she was counting on a bonus, but she understands that she will have to spend a lot of money in the future, and she was not given that much, and therefore she must shake it out of Adam. The main character reports that the allowance he was going to pay her through the adjutant was payment for the moon fireflies, and also a lifetime allowance for the fact that she was exposed to danger because of the monsters. The little girl says that she provides the medicine for Miss Serena for free, and at that time, she thought that she herself received it for free, and therefore can afford it. The alert states that Adam Haley doubts her ability to empathize and dislikes her materialism. Sherry doesn't understand what's going on. It's natural. And he's overwhelmed her with work, and she doesn't know how he can doubt her sensitivity. And besides, in this game he looks more like a robot than anyone else. The gentleman says that he simply has no words, and the notification says that Adam Haley no longer doubts her abilities and has begun to understand her more. The girl became curious because she saw that he smiled, and she doesn't know if he smiled in other games too. The little girl reflects on how a notification window should normally appear about her affection level increasing. After all, she hasn't done anything to increase his interest. Shari is more interested in completing the game faster, so she needs money more than Adam's sympathy. But it's important to note that these changes are not for the better. The gentleman says that he will pay her for additional abilities, and the girl thanks him and asserts that she will continue to try her best. Adam says that he wanted to ask her something, and at that time the little girl thought that she was ready to answer any of his questions. The man asks what she knows about their family's secret weapon, this old chandelier. After all, few people know, especially those who recently joined the service. Even he didn't know this fact. The gentleman claims that she is not of their kind, and does not understand how she knows how to use the chandelier. At this time, the main character was surprised because even she did not know what excuse to come up with, since other users had never used it and therefore thought that it was not that important in the game. The man asks what's wrong with her, and the notification says that Adam Haley has begun to doubt her. Sherry thought that she was finished, and then said that, to be honest, her grandfather told her about it. The gentleman, surprised, asks if her grandfather knew their family secret. She explains that, more accurately, her grandfather heard it from the grandfather of a close friend who lived next door and taught him the apothecary trade. The little girl claims that as far as she knows, he was a pharmacist who worked for Haley 500 years ago. He said that after the sealing of the monsters, the dark power did not completely disappear, so the head of the clan who lived at that time created this secret weapon. The young lady reflects on how good it was that Sulfur told her about the chandelier. After listening to her story, Adam says that it seems like ridiculous nonsense, but there are too many details to consider it a lie. A system alert informed her that Adam Haley had temporarily stopped doubting her. After reading this, the girl sighed, because he believed her. Adam approaches the maid and offers to bring a reward for the apothecary. The maid says she'll have it ready right away. Sherry reflects on the fact that they've sorted out the essence and reward. The master says the maid will bring the reward and that she should go get it. The girl realized she now had to collect the money and go to the cash register, and when she held the reward in her hands, she thanked him and thought that she had finally received the money. The main character thinks that even though it's just a game, this is the first time she's holding so much gold in her hand, but she knows she'll have to spend it later. But her mood has improved nonetheless. Adam asks if she is really so happy, and the girl asks how one can not be happy about the payment for hard work. The man says that she is smiling from ear to ear, and the little girl began to wonder if he is making fun of her. The gentleman asks what the prisoner promised her that made her try so hard to please him in everything, and suggests that she better say whether she really thinks that he will pay her. The main character thought that she always thinks about Castle first and foremost, and it's natural that the distrustful Adam would ask such questions. Sherry understands that he is probably trying to find out if she knows about Castle's identity, and now it will be easier to say what she has long wanted to say. The lady turns to the Count and asks what he thinks. He asks, surprised, what she's talking about. The little girl asks if the prisoner will really pay her, and he asks why she's asking him about it. Sherry says that he reads it, and it depends on him if the disaster does happen and if the situation takes the worst turn. And if the Count fights to the last, then she wonders whether it is possible to continue calling the prisoner a criminal. The girl thinks that it seems that Adam also thought about this, which is why he sent these guards to Castle, although their willful behavior is his fault. The lady says that she is also curious about something, because he said that he brought the criminal here on the orders of the Emperor. And in that case, if he is no longer a criminal, then what will happen to the Haley family that treated him badly? The gentleman says that it is enough to talk about this, because she is just a pharmacist, and then asks how she dares to talk about this. The notification says Adam Haley is angry about her words, When she learns this, the girl explains that it's just her assumption, since nothing has happened yet. The main character thinks about what else can be done as if nothing happened, because in fact, Castle was not particularly angry about the unworthy treatment of himself. Sherry thinks that he is fully aware of his position as a criminal, but all this was while he was considered one. And if Adam doesn't take some special measures, Cassell is quite capable of destroying the Haley family after returning to the throne. Initially, players had to soften the relationship between Adam and Castle, but she doesn't have time for this because the main character needs to think about the disaster and the seal. Adam asks if she thinks there is a way to prevent the disaster. The girl looked at him and thought that he seemed to be asking, but at the same time saying that Castle would never return to power. Sherry claims that of course there is, and no matter what it costs, because he said that he would stay here and protect these lands. At this time, the main character thought that she could not allow disasters to happen. Otherwise, she would not be able to get out of here. The little girl assures that for this, she will do everything possible. In particular, she will take up the making of potions. The girl thought that it seemed like she was interfering too much, because for Adam, she was just a pharmacist. The gentleman pulls out an item and tells her to take it, because it is a protective artifact with a rank. Sherry asks, surprised, what it is. He explains that it's an artifact imbued with protective magic. The protection radius is quite wide, so there won't be any problems moving around. The little girl asks in surprise why he gave it to her, since she knows that she has already received the reward. Adam informs her that if the worst comes to the worst, she should take him and Serena and flee to the capital. The Count says that he would like to talk to him himself, but he needs to prepare to remove the seal and thinks there will not be time. The Master says that if she remains alive, then in the future, when Serena receives the title and inheritance, she will certainly reward her. Adam insists they never forget their benefactors. She asks if he trusts her. The man says that this is not true, and she asks why he then entrusted her with such a task. The Count explains that he cannot say that he completely trusts her, but those who love money will do anything for it. The little girl insists that she is not that obsessed with money, and at that moment she thought that he does not believe her words at all. Suddenly, the main character asks in fear if it is an earthquake. The gentleman explains that this happens when the seal of the monsters is removed. Suddenly, the main character saw a notification that a genie was calling her. The little girl said she was so scared and wanted to know what was going on. The Count asks in surprise what she just said, and the girl assures that she didn't say anything. Adam informed her that since she had received the reward, she could go. The notification stated that Adam Haley doubted her intellectual abilities. Shari turns to the gentleman and says that she would like to ask something, and at that time, she thought that then the genie would stop calling her. The girl asks if they stop giving the prisoner the potion. Does he have any other options? He replies that he has nothing, because all he can do is risk his life and fight. The little girl thought about what she knew, and then said that in that case, if he fails to prevent the catastrophe, then he should take the warriors and go to the western borders. Adam, surprised, asks what she means. Lady explains that monsters will start appearing in that direction. The man, surprised, asks how she knows this, and how she knows it. The girl explains that a prisoner in the tower told her about it, and that she's simply performing duties for a fee. The gentleman asks if he himself told her to convey these words to him. The little girl explains that he told her to convey them to him at the appropriate moment. Sherry understands that she has said everything, and now it is time for her to go. And then she asserts that this is all that she had to tell him, and that she will probably go. The lady understands that the gold is too heavy and wants to quickly put it in her inventory, but she is worried that the genie does not stop calling her. When the girl left, the Count tells the maid that he has a request and invites her to come in for a minute. At this time, the main character thought that she was given a lot of gold, and this payment for her work was so sweet. The maid tells the master that judging by her manner of speech and voice, she is still very young, and she has really done a lot today. The maid reports that the pharmacist went to the swamp to catch fireflies and returned from there all dirty. Thanks to her, it was possible to avoid tragedy and heal Lady Serena, and therefore he thinks it is worth treating her as a benefactor. The master says she asked for payment and benefits for all her exploits. The maid says she's a smart girl, and the Count asks if she didn't see how this pharmacist threatened him. The man thought that he didn't know how she knew all this, because she used the tower prisoner as an excuse to put pressure on him. And if the maid is right, and she is a young girl, then it looks even more absurd. After all, she spoke with such confidence about the prince's return to the throne, as if she believed that she could stop the catastrophe. According to the prophecy, on the 7th night after being taken into custody, or more precisely tomorrow night, it is necessary to prevent the prisoner from falling asleep. Then they will be able to stop the end of the world. But even after this, the seal's removal couldn't be prevented. That's why, to be completely honest, he wasn't particularly worried about the prince losing his power. When the imperial palace announced the weakening of the tower's seal, and the prince was entrusted to it, he already knew about the imminent fall of the Haley family. Adam reflects on the fact that this pharmacist stated so decisively, as if she herself was ready to do this, and naturally it is necessary to prevent this by any means. The gentleman reflects on the fact that her face is hidden by the hood, but he clearly sensed her determination. The maid tells the count that she hasn't seen so many emotions on his face when he treats someone for a long time, and then says that this girl is truly not ordinary. Adam says that he has enough of this nonsense, and at that time he thought about how Sherry had made him angry and then happy in such a short time, and he became interested in who she was. The master orders that this document be handed over to the commander of the knightly order, because they need a seal to prepare for a catastrophe. At this time, the main character read that the genie wrote that now is not the time to transfer the moments to the inventory, because she needs to visit Castle in the tower as soon as possible. Sherry understands that he is asking her to go to Castle and believes that not a minute goes by without some kind of business. The main character asks if anything happened while she was gone and sees a lot of empty bottles on the floor. The girl screamed and asked if he had drunk everything again, and at that moment she thought that she had given him so much potion that he would last until her return, and now there are far fewer empty bottles than there were in the bag. The little one reminds me that she said you can't take everything at once. Sherry noticed a foul odor and the sound of running water. Cassell asked how she'd managed to get back and whether she'd really asked the count to lock him in with her. The gentleman says that she is an idiot, and the girl screams and asks who he called an idiot. When the man came closer to her, she thought that it was not just a faint smell of rot, but broken vials of a potion, and it was not water, but the sound of falling drops of red liquid. The main character realizes that he was trying not to fall asleep, and that's why he was holding broken potion jars in his hands. The little girl claims that he still has some potion left and doesn't understand why. Castle reports that the duration of action has been reduced to 5 minutes. The girl applies the medicine to her hand and reminds him that she promised to return. Shari asks why he was holding the shards. He explains that a man captured by knights for theft cannot return. The gentleman says that it was necessary to leave a few portions in reserve, and therefore suggests not to think about it, but simply that without the sword, everything looks so ugly. Hearing this, the main character thought that he was right, because he didn't know what was going on in the house, and probably thought that she would never return. The little girl believes he needed to hold out on his own, which is why he did what he did, and if she had left more potions, the immunity might have manifested even faster. Shari says she didn't have to do that. He asks, surprised, what else was he supposed to do, and whether he should have calmly watched the country and its inhabitants descend into hell. The main character thought that now Castle looks as if he is angry with her, but in fact he is angry with himself because of hopelessness. The girl recalls that from their first meeting he behaved rudely, and this is natural because he had not slept for several days. The little girl doesn't understand why he's so desperate to stop the disaster, and the main character reflects on how she is going to prevent the end of the world in order to complete the game and return to the real world. But if she were in Castle's place, and because of his curse the whole world was in danger, she would not be able to endure it and not sleep if it did not threaten her own life. Sherry reflects on the fact that maybe he feels responsible for his people, because he must become a ruler, although he does not have such a character. The little girl believes that, no matter what, he is ready to harm himself just to prevent a catastrophe, and therefore believes that it is necessary to submit to his will. The main character remembers that they had some friction with him, but now it is necessary to regain his trust. And then she says that it is all her fault. The girl says that she gave him a low-quality potion and did not come for a long time, and therefore asks him to forgive her. The man says that means she's not completely shameless. Hearing this, the girl thinks she has to say that to him and considers him a jerk. The little girl knows that he suffered because of her carelessness, and therefore believes that he must be patient. Castle asks what the point is in finding out now. Then he points out that, if he thought about it that way, his throat should have been slit, and he should have been thrown into a fire immediately after birth. Sherry, surprised, asks what he is saying, and at that moment, she thinks that she is apologizing to him, and he is only ruining the mood. The notification stated that the Nightmare Lord was displeased with her behavior. She wondered if he was also displeased with her apology. The little girl remembers that he was the one who first said that he should have been thrown into the fire, and now he is offended that she did not support him. Suddenly, the young lady thought that he was trying to comfort her in this way, and although this explains his behavior, Sherry asks if he has any more potions, and then says that she will leave him here and this is a potion for maintaining insomnia, 200 pieces. The man says in surprise that she gave him a little bit, but she has a lot of it. The little girl explains that the Count provided her with the ingredients, so she was able to brew a lot, and then she thought about how much more she had left in her bins. The girl understands that he cannot be allowed to abuse it like that time, and then says that there will be no problems with the potion in the future. Sherry says that, however, the immune system has become stronger, but soon the effect may disappear completely. The gentleman says that we must do everything possible, because there is only 1 day left, and we must hold out for only 1 day. Sherry became curious whether he would be able to hold out for the rest of the time on the potion, even if he took it at intervals of 5 minutes. And finally for the last 4 hours. The lady understands that she cannot wait and shake with fear because of Castle's immunity, and that she must do everything she can now. The notification stated that she had used 100 pieces of dark essence on the broken sword, which had lost its light and was emitting an ominous aura. She fulfilled all the conditions for the reward of the broken sword that had lost its light. The broken blade was imbued with the power of monsters, and is being reborn. The main character thought that she had completed the first part of the quest to revive the sword. The girl understands that he is not yet fully revived, but if she manages to strengthen him, he can become a C-rank weapon, and then she will be able to complete the game without any problems. However, getting a weapon with a rank of 9 is not so easy, and many users restarted the game for this reason. But those who actually managed to revive the sword can be counted on one hand, all because the condition for strengthening is defeating the level 99 centipede boss. Only with the help of poisonous fire can an incomplete sword be strengthened, making it complete. Most users died without ever achieving the buff, and if you kill the centipede boss before the buff ends, the process will not be completed. The main character thought that she no longer wanted to fight the level 99 boss, and she was not ready for the battle, but she thought that it would be better to complete the quest quickly. Castle asks if she revived the sword, and if Count Haley gave her the dark essence. And the little girl says that this is true, and when the Emperor and his courtiers asked him about it, he didn't even bat an eye. The man says that there were probably many who wanted to get this legendary weapon, and the girl asks how many asked Adam to revive the sword. Sherry reports that, as the Count said, in addition to the disaster, the situation in the county is not the best, and measures must be taken. Hearing this, the gentleman asked in surprise what the situation in the county was about. She explained that it seemed that, due to the curse leaking from the magic tower, the sealed monster had begun to gradually awaken. The prince understands that the earthquake happened because of this, and the girl says that the process of removing the seal has accelerated, and it is necessary to prepare for an unforeseen situation. The little girl says she doesn't know how this world is connected to the seal, and just does what she's told. Castle thinks it's surprising that Adam Haley didn't finish him off right away, and is trying to spark a rebellion. Sherry thought that she understood why Castle was talking like that, because for so many years the sealed monster had begun to awaken, and instead of helping Adam, they gave him a man who could lead to the end of the world. In its place, Castle would have turned the imperial palace upside down long ago. The gentleman suggests to the pharmacist that if by the end of today the potion loses all its power, then she should take the sword from the Count. The girl thinks that he is up to something again, and the master says that she should take the sword and give it to him, or finish him off herself. The man tells her to stick it between her shoulder and collarbone and then asks if he sees. He takes her hand and puts it on his chest. Castle insists it's very simple. The girl screams, saying, "Enough!" and then asks if it's really necessary to resort to such a cruel method. The little girl assures him there are other solutions. He asks if she has another option. Sherry thought for a bit and said that in general, we need to come up with some more humane method. The gentleman says that, for example, she can throw a potion at him, but suddenly an earthquake began. The main character thought that this was different from what had happened before, and she realized that the seal was gradually opening. Sherry thought about asking GM when the seal opens, and she knows that there is only 1 day left, and this cannot be allowed to happen. The prince asks how much the Count promised to pay her for this work. She explains that they agreed he would pay her a small amount of gold. The man reminds her that she said she wouldn't get paid if he didn't fall asleep, and asks if that's true. The little girl assures him that it is. Castle informs her that if he falls asleep, she will not see the gold, nor even the shadow of the Count. After all, the entire county of Haley will be on fire and disappear, and in that case, he wonders if she can survive. The little girl thought that she herself knew this, because Castle had not yet seen this, that in the last minutes of Haley County they made great efforts to prevent the winner of nightmares from falling asleep. But all this was in vain, and it led to a disaster, and an attack of monsters on the county. The inhabitants of the county died a painful death in the fire, and despite the desperate efforts of the knights, the county of Haley was completely destroyed. Sherry reflects on what she saw as the ending in the user videos. The gentleman asks why she's silent, and if she's afraid. She explains that he's not afraid, but that she's simply touched by his concern for her life. Castle tells her to shut up, and asks who's worried about her. She then asks why he's saying that. The little girl thought about what she had said without meaning to. The prince told her not to waste time on idle chatter and to instead admit defeat and start looking for a way to stay alive. Sherry claims that she is not lost yet, and at that time, she thought that he was untrue to be worried, and then says that he himself just said that it is necessary to do everything possible. The lady says that it seems to her even more that death from the opening of the seal, and the monsters will come faster than he falls asleep, and she will burn in the fire. The man asks in surprise if she is afraid, because he thinks that a normal person would be scared and run away from here without any reward. The master says her behavior is not typical of a pharmacist. She saw a notification that the Nightmare Lord has serious doubts about her. Castle asks who she really is, and comes closer to her, and then grabs her by the cloak. The man suggests that maybe she was sent to cut his throat when he falls asleep, and asks if that is not the case. The little girl doesn't understand why he's suddenly making her out to be a murderer, and therefore believes that he still suspects her. The notification states that she must dispel the opinions of this character and increase the level of sympathy. Sherry thought that she had long ago given up on Castle's sympathy, but she still believed that he at least trusted her a little, but understood that he was busy testing her. The girl reminds him that she said that he was an ordinary pharmacist, and he asks if she wants him to believe it. The main character claims that he himself was glad that the servants did not harm her, and to be honest, she does not really believe that if he falls asleep, Haley will burn in the fire. The lady thinks that this looks like some kind of baseless nonsense, and even if it is true, then poor commoners like him will not even know that they will die, and they'll stay there until the end just for a few extra gold pieces. She says that's why they should stop suspecting her. After these words, the notification wrote that the Lord of Nightmares temporarily stopped doubting her. The little girl says that if this is true, then he should be the one to be afraid more than anyone else, and asks if this isn't true. Shari claims that if the duchy disappears because of him, then people will die too, but he doesn't seem worried. The gentleman says there was a time when he experienced something similar. He looked at his hand, and it felt like he was alone and suffering. The main character doesn't know who she is to feel sorry for someone, and is stuck in this game and could have died there, and her life would have been even more miserable. The lady says that she cannot die before receiving the reward, and therefore suggests remembering. The notification states that the Nightmare Lord doubts her ability to empathize. The prince suggests that it would be better to point out her slow wit and poor decision-making ability. The girl assures him that this won't happen, and suggests that he no longer worry about her. He asks, surprised, who else in this place worries about her? Suddenly, the head maid comes in and announces that she has brought a change of clothes and some food. At this time, the main character thought that it seemed that Adam had stirred because of her words, and it seemed that he was frightened by the words about the prince's return to power. Shari takes the basket and thanks her. The maid says she hasn't had dinner either, and besides, she's been through so much. Racing informs that she left an Ida in her room and offers to eat properly, but for now she will take her place, and this is the count's order. At this time, the little girl thought that he himself scolded her for being obsessed with money and now caring, and she thought that she just wanted to ask something at GM. Shari says that she will just tell Castle that she will go away for a while and hand over this basket. The lady turns to the prisoner and says that the senior maid will come here now and stay with him, and asks him not to forget about the potions while she is gone. The girl gives him clean clothes and tells him to put them on, then shows him food and says that the count has decided to show mercy. Castle asks in surprise what she had to endure that she didn't even eat. Hearing this, the little girl does not understand when he managed to overhear and then says that she was justifying herself against the false accusation and treating the count's sister. The man, surprised, asks if she's cured her of her illness. The girl assures him it's nothing, as she's very capable. The gentleman reminds her that she said she would go to dinner, and asks why she doesn't leave. Shari tells him not to try to threaten the head maid, and grab her by the throat like he did to her. The girl claims that the maid is a kind person who knows nothing, and that he should not even dare to behave the same way as she did with her. The prince asked if she was now openly treating him like a murderer. Hearing this, she realized he was displeased. The lady thought about how she had given him so much potion and hoped he wouldn't do it, if only out of pride. Then she said she was just saying it because she was worried about it. Castle asks if she asked the count to treat him better. The girl thought that even after the terrible treatment he received, he did not demand that his offenders be punished, but silently accepted his position. The little girl thinks that some commoner intervened and asked her to treat him properly, and this could have angered him. The main character understands that it is a disgrace for members of the imperial family to accept help, let alone pity, from commoners. Sherry says that while she was trying to clear herself of the false accusation of abusing the servants, she complained about something she didn't like, but she can't say that she specifically demanded anything from the count. At this time, the girl thought that they helped him, but he was still unhappy, and then said that she would return in an hour and left the potion in the corner, and therefore let him try to stay closer to the door. The maid claims that she will try to cope and let the lady leave. When the main character arrived in her room, she immediately started chatting. Ari wrote that Sherry was simply brilliant, as she was so dynamic when she fought the main centipede. Sarah writes that she behaved magnificently, and today she recognizes her as her niece. The girl asks in surprise if they saw all this, and also asks if they found a way to exit the game. The main character realizes that she learned two things from the GM. First, there are sealed monsters in Haley County, and this quest can be completed even after reaching level 100 with 4 other characters. The monster perceives her as a strong warrior because of her high level. A patch appeared that lowered it and therefore opened the stars. The second seal of the monster can be removed by pulling out the great sword. The little girl thinks the seal is sorted out. But fortunately, there is one thing. GM changed the system settings, so the disaster will end immediately after the destruction of the monster. Sherry realizes that she will eventually have to fulfill both conditions. Jinu writes that this can be easily accomplished if she continues to keep Castle awake with the potion. After reading about this, the main character was surprised, and then claims that it only works for 5 minutes, and she doesn't understand how to hold out, and whether it's even possible. Jin writes that he sent her a magic boost potion and a health potion as gifts. He believes she should now cope alone, otherwise she'll become a noob. Shari screams and says that she is asking to make it so that she doesn't have to play it at all. The girl understands that it is impossible to allow the seal of the monster and the catastrophe to be removed at the same time. And as a reward, she, of course, received good potions. The little girl understands that only very capable users can easily complete the game with their help, and she knows a little about the plot, but has not completed this game and therefore does not know what to do. The maid excitedly asks Sherry if she's arrived. The lady asks if everything is all right, and the maid explains that, as she said, she checked to make sure he took the potion every 5 minutes. The maid says he just didn't touch his food, and the main character thinks he probably didn't eat on purpose so as not to fall asleep on a full stomach. Sherry looked at the prince and thought that in these clothes he looked more like the main character, but he was so stubborn when she gave him the outfit. But now it seems he likes it himself. The maid asks the lady if she ate well. She nodded, thinking that although she was busy talking, she was still busy. The maid says that it's good that she came and then she'll go, and if she needs anything, she can contact her at any time. Sherry thought that judging by the remains of the potion, the effect had not decreased over time, and there were 18 hours left until the end of the quest. The girl really wanted everything to go smoothly up to this point. Suddenly, she noticed that he had drunk all the potions, and wondered if he was drinking too often. The little girl screams and insists that this is not possible, then comes closer to him and suggests that he stop. She claims that if he drinks more, the effect will not get better, but on the contrary, he may become dependent on the potion. The man says that she better go and bring him a knife, and she asks in surprise what he's talking about. Sherry says that there is no need to say that and suggests waiting a little, because she will find another way, and then asks what he thinks when he will fall asleep. Castle screams and asks if she wanted to die or if she feels guilty and no one needs her. He suggests throwing a potion at him like she did last time. After all, he knows she's good at it. The main character, surprised, asks if he knew it was her. The man explains that every time he threatened to kill her, she flinched, and so he can no longer pretend he didn't recognize her. The gentleman says that it's a pity, but her method didn't work, and such pathetic fragments only slightly scratched him. But thanks to the health potion, they quickly healed, and he was curious why she did it. Castle reports that if she wanted him to feel pain, she had to inflict a deeper wound to at least tear the flesh. The girl objects and says that this is also impossible and, screaming, reminds him that she told him that she would try to find another way. The little girl asks why he suddenly demands a knife. He explains that the green one stopped working about an hour ago. Sherry, surprised, says that can't be, and he asks if she didn't notice. He says he didn't forget about the addiction, but the last batch of the potion didn't produce the desired effect. The man reports that he lasted a whole hour without it, but now the limit has been reached. The lady asks to wait because she needs to think, and at this time, she realizes that despite the fact that Castle is just a game character, she doesn't particularly want to see the person she just talked to die. The girl believes that he probably knew about this pain and does not understand why he did this. Shari says she's always wondered why he tries so hard to protect this place. Castle explains that he did say she was at her limit. Meanwhile, the notification informs him that he's deeply angry at her words and has a strong desire to kill her. The little girl tells him she needs to hear something to make a decision. He asks if she's heard of the Nightmare Lord, then reveals that he hates that nickname. The man explains that's why he mercilessly killed those who invented it, and all those who called it that. But despite this, it didn't disappear. On the contrary, it spread among the people. The emperor himself and the entire capital's aristocracy called him that. And then he began to think about how to wash away this shame. But no matter how much he racked his brain, the only thing that came to mind was the destruction of the source. After all, he'd thought that those who would cry and beg for at least his body would disappear. The lady says that she understands, but she wonders if she could do the same if she were in his place. The little girl knows that he was born a prince of the empire, but because of a curse he lost everything, and she wonders how he feels about it. Sherry thinks that, out of self-pity, she would not think about all those who insulted her, but they treat Castle like a criminal and put him on a chain. And he is still grateful and arrogant. Castle is different from other people not only because he belongs to the imperial family. In general, she realizes that she has satisfied her curiosity, and now she even feels sorry for Castle. The girl thinks that it seems like she is starting to dissolve in this game, and then offers to trust her. The gentleman believes that now is not the time for high-flown phrases, and that he has truly reached his limit. And since she knows his identity, what will he tell her officially? Castle commands like the sun illuminating the continent of Zenith, and if she truly considers herself a subject of the Empire, then let her bring him the sword. The man thinks that it will be difficult for her to carry him alone, and therefore suggests calling the Count. The lady grabbed his head, and he screamed, asking what she was doing. The little girl insisted she could handle it herself, and suggested he rest. The prince screams and asks what some pathetic pharmacist can do, and thinks that she has simply gone crazy. At this time, the main character thought that it was hard for him to fight sleep, and the man claimed that she would regret it and fell asleep. Sherry thought that she already regretted it because she had a backup plan that she had to abandon, and she chose the worst option with her own hands. The girl reflects on the fact that she will always blame herself and regret this choice, but to be honest, she herself does not understand why she does this. But as Castle said, perhaps she was afraid of revenge for his torment, and that is why she asks for forgiveness for what happened, because she tried to help, and did not even think that he would be hurt because of those fragments. The little girl reflects on how she thought that the potion would help the wounds heal quickly, and that it would be better than getting wounds from a spear or stones. She believes that it is still a game world in which only her results matter, and therefore they will consider that she is paying off her debt. Suddenly the lady suggested that he might suddenly start talking so as not to fall asleep, and then said that she would do everything quickly and let him sleep. The prince turns to the girl and says he will definitely finish her off, only if he wakes up. She realizes he's finally fallen asleep. Shari believes that now is the time to face the disaster. The guard shouts and tells everyone to run to the western wall of the Haley Castle, and suggest hurrying because they can't allow the fire to spread even more. The Count thought that it looked like a disaster had begun, as the pharmacist had said, and then he turned to the commander and ordered everyone except the knights, busy with the fire, to take up a combat position. Adam announces that monsters will soon appear here. Meanwhile, the main character, watching them, thinks that he did, after all, go with the warriors to the western wall. The little girl understands that they are acting according to plan, but she feels a little ashamed because only a little time has passed, and immediately a catastrophe began, and she also needs to hurry. The girl opened a bottle of magic-boosting potion and drank it. As she did, she realized that the magic filling speed was significantly different, and that she could now use it without any problems. Sherry looked at the protective artifact and thought that if her calculations were correct, then by using the potion and the artifact together, as Adam requested, she would be able to protect Castle's shield, Serena, and possibly the entire county. The message informs that the activation of the protective artifact is complete, and the protective effect lasts for 1 hour. The main character thought that she had some doubts, but now she was confident that with this she could protect the county. The guards are surprised and ask what is happening and where the protective dome came from. Adam screams and orders 2 to stay there, and the rest to follow him, and for everyone to join in putting out the fire. At this time, the girl thought that Adam was a good guy, because the barrier would give them some time, and therefore he threw all his strength into putting out the fire and did not even have to tell him about it. Shari understands that now she has 1 hour left, and the potion with her magic is limited, and she did not even hope that she would be able to protect the entire territory of the county. Devi Usha believes that the genie gave her this potion just in time, and without it, she would not have been able to cope with one artifact, and therefore hopes that they did not plan all this in advance. The lady looked at the gentleman and realized that he had finally fallen asleep, and that even in his sleep, he looked tired, probably because he had not slept for a long time. The little girl says that some are on the brink of death, while others are sleeping soundly. However, she wants them to at least sleep peacefully, and so she'll manage somehow. Sherry knows that now the real battle begins, and the imperfect sword is shrouded in darkness from this moment on, while everyone is busy with the disaster that has begun. Castle wakes up. Sherry wanted to pick up the sword, but it turned out to be very heavy, and she thought that it was not written anywhere that it was so difficult to pull it out. The little girl saw the curved sword and now understood why it was so hard to pull out, and at that time she realized that it was approaching, and that she would finally meet the huge centipede. The roof of the tower immediately flew off from one blow, and the main character understands that this will not be easy, but in real life she is even more vile. The girl understands that until now there were almost no users who reached this cross, and the centipede turned out to be faster and more disgusting than she thought. and she got goosebumps. The main character doesn't know what to do because she's about to start attacking, and in that case, she first needs to run to the castle. Sherry believes that all this happened because of her, and therefore she must protect him. The little girl took the boy in her arms and thought that it was good that she had high physical strength indicators, because she never thought that she would have the opportunity to hug such a handsome man. However, the main character understands that it is too early to relax, but it seems to her that the speed is gradually increasing, and she will use her magic. The alert states that the protective artifact's duration is half an hour. The lady realizes that, due to the tower's roof being blown off, the power of the chains binding castle has also disappeared. The girl understands that it's good that the magic is restored on its own, and she only managed to stun the centipede for a while, and soon it will move again. The lady understands that then she will become her target, which means she will rush here, and therefore she thinks that she needs to quickly prepare for the next reception and drink a health potion. The main character understands that this potion is capable of increasing her health above her normal level, and most likely the GM gave it specifically to fight the centipede. Sherry thinks she only has 30 minutes and can't just relax. There are still people left on the estate, and the damage from the disaster needs to be limited as much as possible. The little girl looked at the guy and thought that most likely he would not suffer anymore, and therefore thought that it was necessary to finish the battle with the centipede, and she became interested in when she would appear. Suddenly, the monster stood in front of her, and the girl screamed and said that she didn't mean anything. She appeared right now. The girl became curious why she didn't fall after she hit her. The centipede has 3 attack phases, and the first 2 phases were random attacks before. The lady understands that if she manages to dodge them, they will not cause harm, and she even managed to attack her and wound her. But the third phase, the poisonous flame, is very different from the previous ones. This isn't just any fire, but a poisonous flame that causes continuous bleeding even if it touches the body. This attack is the one that is perfectly capable of strengthening that broken sword. The main character thought that she understood this perfectly well, but looking at the huge flame, she wondered whether she really should climb there. The little girl thought that she should drink another health potion, and at that moment she realized that she had given the entire potion to Castle, and therefore she only had 1 minute left to hold out. Sherry says the pain is definitely under control, and she doesn't understand why it's so hot. The girl thought that she was simply crazy, because she had the opportunity to kill the Lord of Nightmares, but she chose to go alone against the giant centipede. The lady wondered if she had done the right thing by placing the castle behind her back, because while she maintained the protective dome, the flames would not reach him, and the remains of the wall would protect her from the poison. The indicators dropped lower, and the girl understands that she will not be able to return to Dover. The message states that the incomplete sword, covered in darkness, admires her recklessness and courage. Light consumes darkness, and darkness becomes the shadow of light, a warrior who devours the lonely night and protects the quiet dawn, and she has the right to wield this sword. How the main character realized that this weapon was not C rank, and it turned into a sword. All members of the group together destroy the centipedes, but this sword was pulled out by Adam, so it will become a weapon only for him. The main character understands that if it is a C rank, then it is no longer a legendary item, but a very rare mythical rank item that is similar to a weapon for a warrior mage. Sherry thought that she needed to take action quickly before she closed her mouth, because she was too distracted. The girl understands that due to the fire attack, the poison continues to damage her, and the artifact's duration is also almost over, so she needs to hurry. The giant centipede has very strong shells, so it is impossible to inflict a fatal blow by attacking the body. However, she opened her mouth when she fired fire, which weakened her defenses. The core, the centipede's most vulnerable part, is located there. Therefore, it's essential to attack its mouth immediately after it releases flames. Unlike a normal attack, which cycles through various phases, it only has a chance to inflict a destructive blow. Shari succeeded, and she destroyed the core, and therefore almost destroyed the centipede. The main character says that even with a C-rank weapon, it is difficult to penetrate the giant centipede's bowl, and she managed to cut it with such ease as if she were cutting butter. And maybe that's where the power of a C-rank weapon lies. The girl thought that the disaster at the Haley estate must have ended, and she needed to go there quickly, because Adam and the others would soon start returning. The little girl looked at herself and realized that she had been like this all this time, and the NPC cape was quite durable, and that was why she hadn't died. However, those parts that were not covered by it still hurt, and it's good that no one saw it. The little girl took the boy in her arms and hoped that he would not wake up, and therefore she had to hurry, and then she put him on the floor because she thought that he would be seen there right away. Sherry says that when poisoned by a potion, it would be good to have a means of sensation, but this combination also helps. And the strengthening of the sword and the destruction of the giant centipede are all his doing, and therefore she places the sword next to him, and let the pharmacist be considered to have escaped. The girl thinks that it would be nice if he didn't remember anything about the disaster at all. The main character thinks that it's a bit of a shame to give Adam the C-rank weapon that she got with such difficulty, but she has a more important goal. And the little girl's goal was that she had to unite with the main characters in order to complete the game as quickly as possible. The notification says that the goal is completed and the entire scenario is over, and after watching the epilogue, she will automatically log out of the account. The girl thought that she did not need money and fame in this world, and in general, she would consider that she had paid them her entire debt. Sherry thought that she was already talking to a sleeping person, and then she looked at the guy and thought that you could immediately see a real hero who had defeated the monster and was now sleeping soundly. The main character believes that her goal is to finish this game, but she is sorry to leave, attributing all the merits to another person. The notification states that the NPC character's health is less than 10%, and she is automatically sent to the starting point of the game in the village of Dover. The girl says that the next time they meet, she asks him not to despise her so much, although, of course, she won't show him her face. The little girl believes that it is important to achieve the desired result, and therefore, they will think that she is repaying her debt. At this time, Castle thinks that he cannot sleep, and he began to wonder if he is in this nightmare again. Every time a terrible catastrophe occurs in it, and everything around collapses, burns, and turns to ashes. The man understands that this disaster will not end until everything disappears, and until this nightmare ends, he will not be able to move, and it is difficult for him to even blink. The prince believes that he is forced to silently watch this spectacle, because people around him are dying, and he can't do anything. And all that he can do is come face to face with the horror that he himself caused, powerlessness and anger at himself, injustice and weakness. The man understands that when they are ready to devour him, then he will understand that the catastrophe is not in these monsters, but in him, the damned man. And when Castle opened his eyes, he realized that it seemed he had broken out of this dream, and saw the pharmacist who was fighting. The prince reflects on the fact that she couldn't stop the giant centipede alone, and therefore believes that it seems like he is still dreaming. The man thinks that if he continues to dream, he risks falling into a nightmare again, and therefore believes that he must wake up. Castle reflects on the fact that even if he wakes up, everything will already be over, and only ashes will remain of Haley County. However, he became curious whether the last memory of this county would live on. The man thought that, judging by the sensations, he had definitely woken up, and it seemed that someone was again trying to make him look guilty, and he was so tired of it all. Not only was he turned into a cruel criminal, but enemies were constantly appearing, accusing him of all sins and trying to finish him off. Castle believes that whoever it was, he was fed up with this situation, but he is used to such things. However, it became disgusting to look at this unchanging world. The lady says he will give up the sword in exchange for loyalty. The prince does not understand why he hears this voice, and believes that there is no doubt that it is the damn pharmacist who closed his eyes and poured sleeping pills into his mouth. And if she is in her right mind, she should have run away a long time ago and doesn't understand why she is still near him. The man hears a voice saying that she will help him when he returns to the capital and retakes the throne. He wonders why she says this. The lady says that, in general, they will assume she has paid him. However, he thinks she should answer his questions. The girl tells him not to be angry with her, but upon hearing this, the man does not understand what this means because she gave him a promise and she cannot leave yet because it is not time yet. Castle turns to the main character and says that he thought he was dreaming. Adam turns to His Majesty and reports that he rushed here after hearing about the commotion. The Count reports that His Majesty personally destroyed the monster that was freed from the seal, and then kneels and tells him to give orders. Adam saw the weapon and said in surprise that this was the ancient sword that was in the Haley estate. The prince says that he will give it to him, and the man, surprised, asks if he can ask why the master decided to give it to him. Castle orders one person to find him the pharmacist he hired, so that he won't sleep and will bring her to him. The gentleman reports that she had pink hair, and this time, he will not let her go. The notifications report that Castle Ludwig has a strong interest in her. The once deposed prince, who was captured in a terrible state and kept in custody, was shown hospitality and resettled in the Count's estate. Castle received the necessary treatment and began preparing to return to the castle. No one interfered with the prince and the Count. From that moment on, when Cassell dealt with the monster and saved the county of Haley, he was already a ruler for those around him. The main character thought that she only knew that the prince was called the Lord of Nightmares for his cruel nature, and she was not interested in other details. However, it turns out that the previous heads of the clan sealed the giant centipede after a 3-day battle, and he destroyed it less than an hour after his resurrection. Adam does not understand why he gave him this sword even before he did it. He showed loyalty to him. The sword is, of course, a family heirloom of the Haley family, but he is not one of those who would give away a weapon that was revived with such difficulty. The servant tells the Count that the knights who explored the tower discovered something, and he asks what exactly, and offers to bring it. The man says that it looks like an artifact, and when Adam saw it, he realized that it was a phenomenon of destruction. The phenomenon of destruction of a magical device, if the magic used exceeds the norm. Just before the monsters attacked Haley County, an incomprehensible protective dome suddenly appeared, the source of which was the artifact he gave to the apothecary. Thanks to this dome, he was able to focus all his efforts on extinguishing the fire that had broken out in the village. Adam doesn't understand why His Highness is looking for that girl. After all, he knows that he grew up in the Imperial Palace and saw a lot, but for his sword he demanded only some pharmacist. Shari Azrael, although she knew moral principles, felt she would do something. Adam wondered what she had done to the prince. The Count understands that, although it was she who saved Serena's life, he cannot allow the prince to finish her off. The master thought that he had already ordered the knights to find her, and now all that remained was to observe the situation. A servant informs the Count that something bad has happened. The Count claims to be a scientist responsible for examining monster corpses, and asks what brings him here. The man claims that it is very scary, and asks for forgiveness for rushing in so suddenly. The man says that the centipede's lower limb, which is the hardest, and a pair of front tentacles and a shell covering the head, all of this has disappeared, and this is a robbery. Adam asks if they took the parts that could be sold. The butler screams and asks how it was possible to steal the parts of the monster that are in the Haley estate, and therefore believes that it is necessary to find the criminal and punish him. The gentleman says that nothing needs to be done. At this time, he thought that this was probably the work of the pharmacist. And then he says that he guesses who did it, and will figure it out himself. The man thought that this was very annoying to him. And not only was the prince looking for her, and she had ignored his orders, but now she had also stolen valuable parts of the monster, and therefore believed that she deserved the death penalty. The gentleman does not understand why she does not arouse hostility in him, and he became interested in who Sherry is. The viewer is like this. Notifications indicate that Adam Haley has a strong interest in her. At the same time, in the village of Dover, the main character does not understand what it is because there is some kind of trembling throughout her body. The girl understands that no matter what happens, she needs to move because she wants to go to the capital next. The main character thought about how she was currently intensively preparing for a scenario in the capital, and in order to get into it, she was completing small tasks. The lady is replenishing her potion supply after spending it in Haley County. She was away from the farm for a long time, so the herbs died and had to be replanted. She used the money she received as compensation to hire workers. The little girl understands that these people are inexperienced farmers and therefore don't know much, but this will do for them, and she takes care of the capricious herbs herself. Sherry gave money to the workers and said that she would be gone for a while and they should look after the herbs. And if the knights came, they should say that they didn't know anything. A week after the end of the quest in Haley County, the main character began to be searched for by Adam's knights, and he had many reasons for this. At the very moment when the giant centipede was destroyed, the pharmacist suddenly disappears, which looks very suspicious. Castle has become Haley's hero and now lives in the same house with Adam. The girl understands that if the knights catch her and take her to the estate, they will either bind her with chains and throw her in prison. Shari believes that Castle will definitely not leave her alive, and she cannot allow herself to be captured under any circumstances. Suddenly, the people of Adam heard that someone had called the name of Sherry, and they thought that they had to hurry. When the main character saw the guards running towards her, the whistle of movement was used. The whistle of travel is a high-ranking item that allows you to travel to any location. It is activated by tearing the paper and is expensive, so it is usually used by royalty or courtiers. The guards were surprised because they didn't understand where the girl had gone. At the same time, in a dark alley in the capital, a man screams and says that the thief is running away. And so begins the quest. Part 2. The capital. The location is the Empire's capital, a black market, and the main character must thwart a dark conspiracy brewing in the capital's black market. She must also enlist the Green Mask as her ally. The man says that this won't work, because paralyzing injections are shaped like a pistol and are used when hunting monsters. The guard says that he's been caught and needs to be tied up quickly, because he understands that if he escapes, there will be a lot of trouble. The gentleman says that he is a good man, because the commander will be happy, and this dose would knock out an elephant, and this one is still conscious and thinks that he is strong. The man says that this is a big robber who managed to lead them by the nose, and he has a green mask, and he turned out to be a half-breed elf. The gentleman says that this is to his advantage, since he can get a decent amount for it on the black market. The elf says to let him go, and the assistant says that he just happens to have the wreath that the commander gave him. The wreath is a magical item used to pacify slaves, and it is worth saying the code phrase, and it is activated by hitting the head with blows. It is impossible to remove it on your own. At this time, the elf thought that he could not allow them to capture him, because he had those whom he had to protect. The green-haired boy thought he was saved. He then wondered who had used the magic. The girl asks if he is still conscious, and the guy is surprised and asks who she is and doesn't understand why she is helping him. Sherry reveals that she didn't plan to take him while he was conscious, and then knocked him out. The main character, sitting with a glass of wine, thought that the person still needs to wash, because the fatigue had disappeared as if by magic. The notification states that this is the second part of the capital, the location of the Empire's black market content, where she must thwart a dark conspiracy that is being prepared in the capital's black market and must make the green mask her ally. The little girl looked at the boy and didn't understand how she could persuade him to become her ally. Elaine Vore, nicknamed Green Mask, is the first main character in the mission to free slaves on the black market. A half-breed elf born on the black market, he saw his kin enslaved and sold from childhood. Then he himself was put up for auction, but he killed the gang members and escaped, stole, and lived on the proceeds. Elaine had only one goal: to accumulate money and free her family and other relatives. The game's original plan was for Elaine to fail to save his family and be captured by members of the Dark Brotherhood. The main character understood that she had to save him after she received the quest, but she did not wait for the black market to open and intercepted it in advance. Sherry asks when the black market will open. Jinnu writes in 3 days, and the girl asks what's up with Castle and Adam. The main character understands that she still has time, and if she didn't do it now, she would regret it. The lady realizes that he is younger than she thought, but suddenly the guy opens his eyes and screams, asking where it is, and then grabs his stomach with his hand. The girl asks if he is looking for the necklace and suggests that he forget about him and instead talk to her. Elaine says he knew it and asks if she was after his necklace. The alert states that the green mask suspects her and feels hostility towards her. The guy promptly asks her to tell him where she hid his necklace. Meanwhile, the lady realizes she didn't expect such a reaction and offers to listen to her. The guy calls her a dirty thief, and the girl says he's asking for it, and then the glass of wine falls on the floor. Sherry grabs his hand and screams, asking who else he is calling a thief. The elf says in surprise that she is very strong, and the girl suggests listening to her carefully and says that Velasir's eye, which he was going to steal, is not real. The lady says that they won't pay much for him, and he won't save his family, but she's not a thief hunting for counterfeits, but his savior, and is here to help him. The guy asks in surprise how she will help his family, and also wonders why she is helping him at all. Shari asks if he wants to know, and then offers to make a deal, and in exchange, she will help him free his family. The Eye of Velasir, the ancient elven king, who became a legend, wanted to hide his daughter from people and tore out his eye, making an artifact out of it. Only those with elven blood can hide with this necklace. The main character understands that with this artifact there is no need to steal and get money, and the guy thought that he could save his family and their entire race. Elaine reflects on the fact that this is why he had to steal it, but only in this way will he stop being a slave or a thief and begin to live his own life. The boy realizes that it turned out that the eye in Velasir was not real, and it was a trap of the Dark Brotherhood. People treated them like toys just because they looked different and didn't take them seriously, and that's their essence. The elf thought that he hated such people, and that they would no longer be able to take away his dear friends and their freedom to live. The lady reminds him that she is offering to make a deal with him, and will help him save his family, and they will both be the winners. Elaine doesn't understand why he doesn't feel any disdain, ridicule, or pity in this girl. She looks at him with honest, non-threatening eyes. The girl asks if he agrees and tells him his full name. The boy thought that this was the first time someone hadn't tried to take something from him but had offered to help, and he wondered if he could trust her. Elaine agrees and suggests giving it a try. Notifications report that Elaine has temporarily stopped suspecting her of ill intent and shows only mild interest in her. Sherry hands him a document and asks him to sign it. He asks, surprised, what it is. The lady explains that this is a regular employment contract and, although they are temporary partners, it is better for everything to be according to the rules. At this time, the main character thought that Elaine was very distrustful, especially of people, and therefore she prepared well. The little girl suggests reading it because then he will understand that these are not bad conditions. When the guy read this, he said that he didn't want to sign it, and she asked in surprise why. Elf explains that as a child he was forced to sign something at the black market, and then he and his family were taken to a strange place. Hearing this, the main character realized that she had not thought about this and believes that he is still very young, and then suggests not to cry. The guy claims he's not crying, but simply lost in thought for a moment. The girl doesn't understand why all the characters in the game are like this, then says that it's generally different from a slave contract. The little girl insists that he can rest assured and offers to sign, and at that moment she thought that it was a good thing she had prepared several copies just in case. Elaine wonders how she is going to save his family, since she knows the necklace is fake. Shari says she has a plan, and it's a C-rank invisibility potion that's hard to get but makes you thermally transparent for a certain amount of time. Hearing this, the guy is surprised and says, "Wow, such a potion exists." The lady explains that she brewed it herself, and naturally, he didn't know about it. The little girl realizes it's a very valuable potion containing the centipede shell. He asks, surprised, if she brewed it herself, and if she's an apothecary, since he thought she was a mage. Shari smiled and claimed that she was an ordinary sweet pharmacist, and then said that of course it wouldn't hide sounds and smells, unlike the eye of the Velicier, but she thought it was worth a try. The girl looked at the notification and became curious if there was any other important information about this elf. Jin informs him that he has found where the eye of Velicier is, and it is not far from the black market. Shari asks if this means he still wants to find this eye of Velicier, because he doesn't know when his family will be in danger again. The lady says that she wants to help him there, and as soon as they finish this matter, the guy looked at her and agreed, then said he would sign the contract. She reminded him that he hadn't read the terms of the contract. Elaine says that he has no other choice anyway, and especially since he can't read. The main character thought that he had just been so doubtful and now he had changed his mind again. The guy claims that he knows for sure that her name is above his, and asks if that's true. The lady asks in surprise how he read it, and then says that it's a pity that it's not her name, but his employer's. The elf asks who he is, and the girl thought that this is the main character whom he will have to help until the very end. And this is Castle. Shari says that this is the crown prince of the empire, and the boy says in surprise that this is where she knows him from. The notifications indicate that Elaine is slightly displeased with her words. The elf says that this doesn't suit him, and that if he doesn't like this agreement, he's going to kill everyone, and therefore hopes that she wasn't lying about the invisibility potion. Elaine says that if his employer is the prince himself, then killing him will be unprofitable. The guy says that they have 2 months of work ahead of them, and at this time, the girl began to wonder if she would even be able to complete the quest with him. 3 days later, the guy asks Nuna if she's ready. She tells him not to rush her, and then asks if he knows how hard it is to put on a dress alone. When the elf saw the girl, he was very struck by how beautiful she looked. The lady suggested they go to the black market. In a few minutes, they were already at the appointed place, and Sherry became interested in whether this was the same black market, because it looked much brighter and more respectable than she thought. The little girl understands that this is all just an optical illusion, and therefore she must begin the plan. The woman turns to the man, and he asks in surprise what happened. She says she wanted to sell the slave and buy a new one. The man asks if she bought it here. The lady insists that she did, and that he smells too bad and is too brazen. The gentleman apologizes that their product did not suit her, and assures that he will do everything now, and therefore offers to follow him. The main character thought that this was great because, so far, everything was going according to plan. When the man took off his hood, he saw that it was a raccoon, and at that time Sherry thought that the elf would have to try a little for the quest. A few hours ago, Elaine screamed and insisted that he didn't want to and asked why he had to become a slave. The main character explains that this is just a disguise to get in there, and believes that if someone hears, they might misunderstand everything. The girl explains that she's not actually asking him to become a slave. The boy insists he doesn't want to become a raccoon because he's too ugly. Then the lady realized what the problem was. The message indicated that he was displeased with her sudden behavior and showed little interest in her behavior. After reading about this, the little girl doesn't understand what kind of interest there could be, but then suggests listening, because there is a reason for this. Sherry explains that her invisibility potion only lasts for 2 hours, and even if they manage to get to the black market, they don't have much time. Elaine asks what this has to do with the raccoon. She explains that raccoons usually smell bad, which is why they're kept in separate cages. Raccoons, unlike others, are not particularly popular and are poorly guarded, so it will be easier to escape. The girl reminds him that he said he wanted to free his family from prison, and then claims that that's why he has to become a raccoon to get in there. The main character tells him that when he gets into a separate cell, he must immediately drink the potion and escape from there. Before the auction begins, he must stun the guards and open all the cages so that his relatives and other captives can escape. The guy says that it's easy to get out of the cage and knock down the door, and then asks in surprise about the slaves in shackles, because he knows he won't be able to help. Elaine says that only Valet can remove the shackles, and the lady asks if he thinks so. She didn't teach this. Sherry reminds that she said that she has a plan, and she knows a way to remove the shackles, and to put this plan into action, she needs the power of the green mask. The girl claims that he must pay for her potion, and asks if he has forgotten about it. The guy enthusiastically says that Nuna is amazing, and the girl tells him to call her mistress. At this time, the main character thought that as soon as she took off her cloak, the inventory volume reached its limit, and therefore Elaine had to do everything clearly and without errors. Sarah wrote a message that the main character looks very cute and sexy in this outfit, and suggests taking off this stupid cape completely. Jin asks what she will buy at the auction, and offers to give at least some spoiler. At this time, the girl thought that she was now in a minefield, and trying to get into the enemy's lair, and no matter what, This time everything had to be done quickly. Shari understands that the quest is a quest, but she wouldn't want Elaine to end up like in the game, because he's still very young. The man tells the lady that they have already arrived, and she thought that this is a dungeon with slaves, and this place looks worse than she thought. The gentleman asks why she came, and the man explains that this guest wants to resell the fish. The gentleman says with delight that she came to the right place, and then asks if he can check what kind it is. And when he takes off the hood, he screams and says, "Yes, it's a raccoon." At this time, the elf does not understand what kind of reaction this is, because he doesn't even smell. The gentleman asks how much the lady would like to sell it for. The lady says she wants to put it up for auction. The man says it's a shame, but raccoons aren't popular, and it will be difficult to get decent money for them. Sherry asks who he would like to teach, and then claims that he is different from ordinary raccoons. The gentleman offers to explain in more detail how he's different. The lady replies that it was she who brought him here. The main character screams and asks if he knows her, and also asks if he is new, and then claims that they have recruited a rabble. Sherry angrily says she'll have to personally go up to the 4th floor and speak with the owner. Upon hearing this, the gentleman apologizes and then claims he'll immediately put it up for auction. The lady insists it should have been done that way from the start, and asks who the idiots were. The man asks how he should introduce this fish. The girl says it's a slave owned by the Nightmare Lord's lover. The men are very surprised to hear this, and the main character doesn't understand why she just got goosebumps. The man says that they will do everything right away, and bow to her, and the girl asks where they will go. At this point, the main character thought that she wouldn't do this a second time, even though she knew she'd come up with this plan herself, because she believed she'd be happy if he didn't find out and kill her. Sherry assumes that Castle and Adam will arrive in the capital only in 4 days, and therefore she can be calm. Suddenly, the girl doesn't understand what it was, or what that familiar look was, and the man asks if she has any complaints about the service. The lady says that they have to give her something, and he asks in surprise what she is talking about. The main character says that she entrusted them with her goods and is waiting for a deposit for it, because she was told at least 10 million for the fact that she put the goods up for auction, and then asks if he means to say that she will not receive this either. The lady wonders if she will have to tell her lover about this again, and the gentleman asserts, screaming, that he cannot give more than 5 million. Hearing such a sum, the little girl thought that this was very good money, and the raccoon, screaming, turns to the lady and asks her not to abandon him. The main character thought that this idiot plays his role so beautifully that he should have become an actor. The gentleman turns to the ladies and gentlemen and informs them that he welcomes them to their auction, and this is a quest to free the slaves. The basement of the black market auction building contains numerous slaves of other races. The protagonist must free them while avoiding encounters with the Dark Brotherhood and monsters. The conditions for completing the quest to free more than 100 slaves, and the duration is 2 hours, and the countdown has begun. The young lady watches the auction closely, and the host announces that a slave from the wolf race is going to guest number 9 for 300 coins. The little girl was surprised because she saw so many different slaves and there was no one next to her. The presenter announces that the next lot will be immediately recognized by those who know how to handle a sword, and then announces that this is C-rank armor made from the scales of an ancient monster. The girl was interested because she thought it was a good item, and believed that if the starting price was 1 million, she could fight for it. However, the gentleman began to offer sums of 6 million. And the little girl realized that these aristocrats also wanted to have this item. Worth considering. Although she does have a little over 18 million. And if you remember the Dark Brotherhood's tricks, it's not worth spending personal money. There's another reason they're called cruel and treacherous. Whenever some unknown aristocrats acquired rare items, they'd finish them off after the auction and reclaim the goods. Ordinary users who didn't know about this were losing both money and their lives. And the little girl understands that there's no point in making unnecessary noise, especially since there's another item she wants to buy. The presenter shouts that the last offered price is 8, and then asks if there are any other offers. Suddenly, a gentleman appears and announces he's offering 10 million. The host announces that he'll receive a suit of C-rank armor made from the scales of an ancient monster. When the gentleman sat down on the chair next to the girl, she didn't even know where she should share and what was happening, because he was supposed to arrive in 4 days. Ari writes a message that she did say, but she didn't check her messages. She again reported that the winner of the nightmares just arrived at the auction, and other users don't know about it and therefore suggest being careful. And after reading about this, the main character thought that she should have listened to the end, and if she had known that this would happen, she would have changed places with Elaine. Sarah writes that she shouldn't worry because today she's in the image of a sexy, sweet beauty. After reading about this, Sherry thought that this is true and that she is without a cape and believes that she needs to act confident. Suddenly, the girl saw that Castle looked at her and suggested that he might have recognized her, and maybe he knew everything in advance. Sherry became curious whether Castle had participated in the auction initially, since she had not heard anything about it. The main character believes that, if you think about it, the user should acquire weapons through a quest. And Castle, unlike the other main characters, was already armed and armored, fully armed and with rare items. At first, the girl thought that the problem was that he was a prince, and that was why. But if he bought so many things, then everything was clear. But she didn't understand why he was sitting not in his place, but next to her. The presenter announces that the next lot is a lasso, which in ancient times was often used to hunt monsters. Hearing this, the main character realized that, after all, for a relic, it was in pretty good condition, and the girl knew its approximate price. Sherry picks up her number because she understands that now is not the time to quibble about the price, and this lasso is needed to complete the quest. The host asks if anyone is willing to pay more. The little girl thinks he can scream as much as he wants, because he doesn't know if anyone else will buy this old thing. The gentleman says that if there are no offers, then the lasso for hunting monsters is sent. But suddenly, the prince raises the number and says that he is offering $1 million. Sherry thought he was a lousy prince and looked at him. She didn't understand why he wanted to pay $1 million for this rickety rope. The presenter asks if there are any other offers, and the main character offers another 100 coins more. The prince announces that he is giving $1.5 million, and then $2 million. The girl announces that she is giving $3 million, and the host says that it looks like guest number 38 really wants to get this lot, and he has a feeling that the hunting blog itself is patronizing her. Shari looked at the prince and wondered what he would do now. He stood up and said, $3,200,000, and they began haggling again. The presenter, shouting, says that there is a tense struggle, and that this is the beauty of the auction. The main character saw a message that said she had 1 hour left, and she realized that there was little time left. Sherry thinks that it would be time to slowly leave there to help Elaine, and then picks up the number and announces the amount of $5 million. The presenter turns to the gentleman and asks if he will name a higher price. And at this time, the main character thought that if she raises the price, she will not just leave it like that. The prince says that he refuses to bargain and gives this guest an old lasso for hunting monsters. The host claims that it was an amazing battle, and the lasso goes to guest number 38. At this point, a man approaches the lady and asks how she will pay. She says she will pay in person. The main character thought that this Castle was a nasty bastard who only got in her way, and he did it on purpose. When the lady paid, she thought that time was running out and she had to hurry, because she believed that Elaine had probably already freed the slaves and made his way into Valak's room. When the girl grew tired, she felt someone grab her hand. The gentleman asked her where she was going in such a hurry, and then informed her that the auction wasn't over yet. Shari claims she's already bought everything she needs. He asks, surprised, if she came here to buy some junk. The lady asks why he addresses her informally, and the man says that if she doesn't like it, she can also address her informally. The girl takes her hand away and says that she doesn't want to, because she can only talk like that with friends. The prince says that these are hurtful words, because he thought they were friends, and then hugs her. The little girl, surprised, asks what he means. Suddenly, the lady saw the head of the Dark Brotherhood, Valak, who, screaming, ordered the sacred water to be brought. The gentlemen ask in surprise what kind of monster this is, and they do not understand what other sacred water they are talking about, since they believe that only the pontiff and the saint can control it. At this time, the main character thought that something bad had happened, and if he sprinkled it on the invisibility potion, it would lose its power, and this would mean that Elaine's plan had failed. The head of the Dark Brotherhood says that it is very strange because it does not smell like a badger, and therefore believes that he used a camouflage artifact. The man insists it doesn't matter, because he'll die soon anyway. Hearing this, the girl realized everything had gone wrong. 3 days before the start of the quest at the black market, the main character suggests listening carefully, because when he opens all the doors of the dungeon, he will have only one task for the remaining hour. Shari is informed that he must steal the laurel wreath of the leader of the Dark Brotherhood, Valak, and this is the only way to remove the shackles. Hearing this, the elf was surprised, and the lady asked if he had any problems. Valak is sleeping on the very top floor of the market building, and he must simply sneak in and steal the wreath. The lady says that if everything goes as planned in this quest, Valak will not do anything, and even if he wakes up, he has an invisibility potion. Sherry says that he is the Green Mask and suggests not to be afraid, because for him, stealing is very simple, and if you don't get distracted, everything will end quickly. Shari tells him not to do anything extra, and just take out the wreath. And if there are other treasures in that room, then he should under no circumstances be distracted by them. At this time, the main character does not understand what happened there. An hour before this, the man asks why aristocrats need this, and for money. The elf remembers that she told him to drink the potion as soon as he got to the dungeon, and then he did so and thought that it seemed like she wasn't lying when she said that it was an invisibility potion. Elaine thought that it was great. Everything was ready, and now within 1 hour, he would free all the prisoners. The elf quickly set to work and easily removed the locks. He thought that these locks were somehow flimsy and he could remove them in 3 seconds. The guy saw the security guard and then ran up to him and hit him in the middle of the legs and then beat up the others. Elaine thought that everything turned out just as the pharmacy said, and therefore she thinks it won't take even an hour, because the best thief in the Green Mask Empire is capable of this. The elves who were sitting behind bars do not understand why the shackles suddenly fell off their hands. The woman asks who is there, and the elf says it is him. She heard a voice and asks if he is Elaine. The elf wonders if he really got the Oko, Velicera. The guy tells her to be quiet because he'll explain everything later, and because of the shackles, she can't escape yet. And Lane says that he has an assistant, and that they will soon be able to get out of here, and therefore suggests waiting a little. The sister claims that they are fine and asks him to be careful and take care of himself, because now the Wallach is probably looking for him. Elaine asks Nuno where Lucy is. Her sister says she was taken away yesterday to the dark side of the world and hasn't returned yet. The woman reports that these freaks have been taking only children lately, and the same thing happens with other races. Elaine says that he will think of something and suggests that they sit quietly until he returns. At the same time, in the cell where Elaine was supposed to be, a man asks in surprise what is going on and where the raccoon went. The elf made sure there was silence and knocked the man out, and then said that their brother was trying to save them, and they couldn't stand aside. The little girl claims that they are dirty people and should not be bullied anymore. One guard reports that slaves have escaped in the underground area and have freed themselves and started running away. The man says that he hopes they will quickly take measures so that this does not harm the guests of the auction, and the culprit of what is happening is the longtime enemy of the Dark Brotherhood, Elaine. At this time, the elf came into the room of the head of the Dark Brotherhood and thought that the pharmacist was right because he was sleeping like a baby, and he began to wonder whether it was worth leaving him alive. Elaine thought that perhaps this was his chance, and if he finished him off now, he would be able to avenge his family. The guy remembers the words of the hostess that he should do everything only without stupidity, and then takes the wreath and thinks that he promised that he would act according to the plan, and understands that he needs to quickly take it and leave. Suddenly, Elaine heard a child crying and children calling for their mother. He realized the voice was definitely coming from another room and decided to go there. The guy understood that this voice belonged to Lucy and thought that he still had a little time and he had to save her. At this time, the girl felt that there was someone in the room and was asking for help and not to finish her off. The guy asks her to be quiet and then announces that it's him. The little girl, surprised, asks if he's really her uncle since she can't see him. The elf explains that he used magic to save her and then says that he will soon get her out of there and that she should not be afraid. And at that time, Vassal woke up and said that there weren't enough children, and as soon as they grew up a little, their taste changed, and therefore it was better to eat them before they had time to grow up. At this time, the guy thought that this was the man who was sleeping, and realized that he was the same height as him. The man says that it's strange because he doesn't understand how she managed to remove his magic, and then, surprised, asks where the smell is coming from, and thinks that there is someone else there besides her. The vassal says that of course there is a way to test this, and then pours out a glass of wine and says that he thinks this will help. The man says that he thought that the raccoon smell was coming from, and then asks if he thought he could trick his nose and calls him an idiot. At this time, the guy hit him and thought that he needed to leave quickly before his people came here, because he had to meet with the pharmacist. Elaine reflects on the fact that the one who was sleeping on the bed woke up, which means he was not alone, and does not understand where he made a mistake. And the man asks how he dared to attack him, and then, screaming, orders the double to grab him. The guy realized that the real Valak was small, and the Valak they knew was only a puppet. The elf felt hurt because he couldn't keep his promise. At this time, the man announces that he is betting money on the one who can tame this slave, and whoever does it the fastest will give the elves away for free. Wallach announces that the starting price is 10 coins, and then announces that they are starting their auction. At this time, the bidding began and the guards held the raccoon and called him an ill-mannered slave. The man comes closer to the guy and says that he needs to be punished and then uses magic. At this time, the main character saw that the camouflage artifact had been removed and an elf had appeared instead of a raccoon. Valak orders the torture instrument to be brought and then announces that today he will taste the elf. Hearing this, the main character thought about, what if he does this and everything happens as it was originally planned? According to the game's plot, today Elaine falls into the hands of a psychopath and something terrible happens to him. He will become dark and lose his personality, so she told him to take the wreath and leave there immediately. The girl understands that her plan was perfect, and she became curious about what happened there, whether it was a Wallach trap or a simple accident. Sherry realizes she must save Elaine quickly. The man tells them to pay the money and get in line. The prince asks if she's also bet money. Hearing this, the lady realizes there was a castle involved, and he asks if she intends to participate in all of this. The little girl suggests not to misunderstand her because he originally belonged to her, and then she leaves. The The message states that the Nightmare Lord has some interest in her actions. The lady approaches the arena and then takes the voice amplification artifact from the assistant. Voice Enhancement Artifact is a special artifact that increases the volume of the voice during an auction. Sherry tells everyone to shut up, her voice cutting through everyone's ears. She turns to the man, calls him boss, and then announces that she has an objection. The main character says that this is her slave, and she brought him to resell him, and then asks why they arranged the auction here without asking her. Sherry asks the fat man who he is to decide. Valak claims this can't be true and that he has infiltrated the Dark Brotherhood. The lady asks what kind of nonsense this is and when he managed to buy this slave, and also asks if he has any proof. The lady reports that she has a witness, a slave trader, who paid in advance on the check she wrote. At this time, the main character thought that it seemed she had managed to buy time and ordered all the slave traders to be gathered. The gentleman asks the slave traders which of them paid guest number 38. A few minutes later, the man with the mustache raised his hand and said it was him. Valak asks how he dared break the rules and whether he wanted to die. The slave trader explains that it was she who first asked the guest if he knew who she was. The man explains that she spoke as if she knew him, and he could not do anything, much less this guest. But suddenly, the main character interrupts him and screams, saying that she said that she is the beloved of the Lord of Nightmares. At this time, the message was written that the Lord of Nightmares was watching her actions with interest, and was interested in what she would do next. Valak thought that he was finished, and then bowed his head and told the lady that their worker had misunderstood and made a mistake. The man says that since this is how it turned out, maybe she wants to replace him with another slave. The lady says that there is no need to do that, since she has checked everything that is necessary. Valak, surprised, asks what she means. Meanwhile, the girl was thinking about how quickly she'd have to complete this task. A few hours ago, in a house in the capital, Castle was training, and suddenly thought about Sherry, and became curious about where she was hiding. The prince understands that after that day he can't find her, and that impudent and nasty pharmacist who dared to anger him, and then disappeared and even remained alive. The gentleman reflects on the fact that from the very beginning, she did not give him any peace, and it was clear that he frightened her like others, but for some reason she pretended that this was not the case. Castle thought that it would soon end, but she exceeded all his expectations and at some point became something like a crack for him. Little by little, she tore him apart and eventually changed his life, and this change should not have been in him, in the damned prince, a disaster for humanity. The prince wondered why he wasn't disgusted by these changes. Adam approached His Highness and informed him that everything was ready for the offensive. The gentleman asks how the search is going, and he asks if he means that pharmacist. Adam reports that they've checked all the surrounding areas of the duchy, but there's no news yet. Cassell says he'll handle it himself. The count asks if he's planning on holding another training session. The gentleman says that's enough for today. The prince says that to catch a rabbit you need to set a trap, and to set a trap you need bait, and then he says that they will go to the auction. At this time, Castle thought that this girl, without any fear, introduced herself as his beloved, and judging by her impudent behavior and manner of speech, this is definitely the one he is looking for, and therefore he became interested in what his beloved is capable of. The gentleman remembered that he was actually going to start an interrogation as soon as they met, but an awkward moment happened and he gave in to him. Castle thinks that it is quite possible that this is not Sherry, but does not understand why she then bet money on it. The man remembered that she said that initially, this slave was hers and belonged to her. He doesn't know why this one phrase made him so angry, and he became curious whether this slave was really so dear to her.